Do we know why this true immortal has descended into our spirit realm? Our realm has been out of contact with the true immortal realm since ancient times. A true immortal would have to expend an unimaginable price to descend into our realm, and they'll have to be restricted by the power of laws of our realm. As such, there has to be a reason for his arrival, Mojangly analyzed. I'm not too sure about that, and I never received any information on this subject from the He-Lion Trade Guild. All of the beings of our realm who have come into contact with this true immortal have perished, so there's no way to investigate his objective, Han Li replied with a shake of his head. If I were the one in charge of the Trade Guild, then I would find out this piece of information at all costs, Mojangly said. You're right, Brother Mo. I'll pass on this suggestion to fellow Taoist Ming Zun right away to see if there's any way that this can be accomplished. However, I'm not too optimistic, Han Li replied with a nod. No matter how slim the chances are, we have to try. If we can find out that true immortal's objective, we'll be able to have far more leverage both in battle or in negotiation, regardless of which option we chose to pursue, Mojangly said. Do you have any suggestions other than that, Brother Mo? Han Li asked. Judging from what you just told me, you have two acquaintances who irked this true immortal and were pursued all the way to the Thunder Continent before disappearing. Is that true? Mojangly asked. Fellow Taoist Ming Zun informed me of this in person, so it should be reliable information. Neither of these acquaintances of mine are human, but one of them is a good friend of mine, while for the other, it's hard to say whether he's friend or foe, Han Li replied. In that case, I'd advise you to try and get into contact with these two. I don't know how they managed to irk this true immortal, but if we can track them down, we'll be able to seize some initiative, Mojangly said. Han Li's brows furrowed slightly upon hearing this. You're suggesting we use them as bait. If that true immortal really pursues them onto the Tian Yuan continent, there's nowhere they'll be able to hide. As such, even if it's to save their own lives, they'll have no choice but to act as bait. Fellow Taoist Ming Zun of the He-Lion Trade Guild most likely has the same plan in mind. Otherwise, he wouldn't have told you about this, Mojangly said. They were already used as bait once on the Blood Sky continent, so I'm not sure if they'll be willing to comply again. However, if they really do come to our human race to seek protection from me, then they should be willing to cooperate with me. Having said that, it won't be a simple task to get into contact with them. I'll get my disciples to try and arrange that, Han Li replied with a nod after a brief moment of contemplation. It would naturally be best if those two fellow Taoists were willing to cooperate. As for whether that true immortal will fall for the same trap twice, I don't think there's any need to worry. This is a man who's brazen enough to sacrifice hundreds of millions of living beings, so he clearly thinks no one in our spirit realm can pose a threat to him. Even if he knows that it's a trap, he'll step into it without any inhibitions. Though I still hope that true immortal can complete his objective without having to step onto our Tian Yuan continent. Otherwise, even if you can defeat him, he would still most likely bring a major disaster upon our continent, Mojangly said with a wry smile. Letter 1D453, letter 1D45F, letter 212F, letter 1D626, letter 1D4CC, letter 1D626, letter 1D450, letter 2134, letter 1D4C2. Considering how unfathomable his powers are, things like plots and traps will most likely be useless anyway. Hopefully, we won't have to actually face him in battle, Han Li sighed in response. You made the right decision to join the alliance gathered by the Trade Guild, Brother Han. Otherwise, no individual race on the Tian Yuan continent would be able to face that true immortal. It's a pity that my powers are quite ordinary among Grand Ascension stage beings, so I can't assist you much. I'll disperse the human residents of major cities with high population densities as soon as possible. In that case, even if that true immortal targets our human race, our losses will be kept to a minimum. On top of that, I'll prepare some powerful restrictions within the city as a precautionary measure, Mojangly said with a serious expression. That sounds like a good plan, Brother Mo. Now that I've informed you of the situation, I'll be returning to the Azure Origin Palace tomorrow, Han Li replied with a nod. Thus, the two of them chatted with one another for close to 2 more hours before Mojangly finally took his leave. Han Li and Nangongwan accompanied him out of the hall before watching as he flew away as a streak of white light. Are you going into seclusion again once we get back? Nangongwan asked after the streak of white light disappeared into the distance. That's what I plan to do. I obtained several profound secret techniques during my trip. It won't be possible to completely master them in a short time, but even an elementary level of mastery could assist me greatly. Han Li replied as he stroked his own chin in a contemplative manner. You're right, I just didn't expect our human race to face such a severe tribulation as soon as we returned. The path of cultivation is truly an arduous one, Nangongwan sighed with a forlorn expression. You're overthinking things, Wanner. Cultivation in itself is an act that defies the heavens, so hardships are only to be expected. Where's the fun in competing with other people? The true fun lies in contending with the heavens, Han Li chuckled before returning to the Ark's cabin. Nangongwan faltered slightly upon seeing this before a faint smile appeared on her face, and she also followed along behind Han Li. The next day, the in-spirit Holy Ark departed from Deep Heaven City. 2 months later, the Ark returned to the Azure Origin Palace on the Origin Integration Island of the Boundless Sea. Tens of thousands of human and demonic cultivators were gathered on the massive plaza in the palace, kowtowing to welcome the return of their patriarch. Han Li and Nangongwan emerged from the Ark, followed by Zhu Guor and the others. Welcome back, esteemed patriarch. The welcoming words of tens of thousands of people rang out across the entire plaza. Han Li merely gave them a nod of acknowledgement before making his way toward the gate of the Azure Origin Palace. In contrast, Nangongwan was astonished. She had heard from Han Li that he had established his own forces in the human race, but never did she think that it would be on such a grand scale. After all, he had only recently reached the Grand Ascension stage, so she had thought that it would take some more time for him to garner such widespread support. Hai Yueshan was standing in a respectful manner in front of the Azure Origin Palace, and he immediately made his way over to Han Li before extending a deep bow. Hai Yueshan pays his respects to his master. This is my Dao companion, Nangongwan. Come and greet her as well, Han Li said as he pointed at Nangongwan. Hai Yueshan was rather taken aback to hear this before extending a respectful bow toward Nangongwan in an ecstatic manner. Hai Yueshan pays his respects to Mistress Nangongwan. Master has finally been reunited with you. I've heard much about you from your master, Hai Yueshan. You're certainly very handsome, Nangongwan said with a smile. Thank you for your kind praise, mistress. Hai Yueshan was even more elated upon hearing this. However, a stern look suddenly appeared on Han Li's face as he interjected. HMPH, looking pretty is all that he's good for. If he worked even a third as hard as Qi Lingzi in his cultivation base wouldn't be so pitiful. Hai Yueshan's smile immediately faded upon hearing this, and he mumbled in a barely audible voice, I'm already doing my best. How can I possibly compete with a cultivation freak like senior martial brother Qi Lingzi? An amused smile appeared on Nangongwan's face upon hearing this, while Han Li aimed a stern glare at Hai Yueshan before making his way into the Azure Origin Palace. At this point, all of the disciples on the plaza were also departing in an orderly fashion, and Nangongwan naturally became a hot topic of conversation among them. Han Li sat down on the main seat in the hall of the Azure Origin Palace, then instructed some people to organize lodging for the cultivators from the small spirit sky before turning to Hai Yueshan. Where is Fairy Silvermoon? Not long after your departure, Senior Silvermoon went into seclusion, and she's most likely at a critical juncture of her cultivation, which is why she hasn't come out to see you, Hai Yueshan said as he stole a wary glance at Nangongwan. That's a real shame. I wanted to have a good chat with Sister Silvermoon, but there's always time for that in the future. Yueshan, make sure to inform me right away as soon as Sister Silvermoon emerges from seclusion, Nangongwan instructed with a faint smile. Yes, mistress. Hai Yueshan was quite taken aback to hear this, and despite the fact that he was maintaining a serious expression, the look in his eyes clearly betrayed his thoughts. Han Li was both amused and exasperated to see this, and he rolled his eyes as he dismissed Hai Yueshan. Chapter 2409, Preparations. After that, Han Li led Nangongwan on a tour of the entire Azure Origin Palace, then got her to select a side palace to her, liking for her to live and cultivate in. After witnessing all of the secret techniques and tomes in the tome library, as well as the countless treasures, pills, and materials in the treasure vault, Nangongwan was struggling to pick her jaw up from the ground. Han Li had encountered several miraculous opportunities during his cultivation journey, and he had slain many Grand Ascension stage beings, so he was most likely wealthier than almost anyone in the entire spirit realm. Having been trapped in the small spirit sky for so long, never did Nangongwan think that she would see so many treasures in one place. Han Li urged Nangongwan to select a few protective treasures and some pills, then gave her 2 restriction badges that would allow her to access these 2 places at any time she pleased. Nangongwan was naturally ecstatic, and she accepted everything with glee. After that, Han Li met with the people running the Azure Origin Palace and took care of some urgent business, then sent out some people to track down the Ice Phoenix before taking Nangongwan on a tour of the entire Origin Integration Island and most of the Boundless Sea. During the span of around a month, the two of them were like an affectionate mortal couple and thoroughly enjoyed their time in one another's company. However, once they returned to the Azure Origin Palace, both of them went into seclusion, leaving the palace to Hai Yueshan to manage. Currently, Han Li was seated in a secret chamber that was enshrouded within many layers of restrictions, and there were 3 glowing treasures hovering before him. The trio of treasures was comprised of a golden page and 2 jade slips, 1 silver and 1 red. These items contained the organ refinement origin arts, origin astral barrier, and that lightning refinement secret technique, all of which he had obtained during his trip. Han Li took a brief glance at the 3 treasures before pointing a finger at the golden page, which flew up his sleeve as a ball of golden light. The organ refinement origin arts contained within the golden page could enhance his powers drastically, but it required such an astonishingly long time to cultivate that he had no choice but to leave it for the future. After a brief moment of contemplation, Han Li stowed away the silver jade slip as well. The Origin Astral Barrier secret technique was recorded in golden seal text, so its contents were extremely difficult to understand. Just deciphering the secret technique would take a huge amount of time, let alone cultivating it, so it wasn't worth pursuing in the short term either. Thus, that only left the lightning refinement secret technique. On the way back, he had already understood most of the secret technique, and full mastery should be attainable given another month or so. He also possessed divine Devilbane lightning, so the refinement process wouldn't require a very long time either. Once combined with the lightning wheel technique, this secret technique would be incredibly powerful and would be sure to give his future opponents a massive surprise. With that in mind, Han Li waved a hand toward the jade slip, drawing it into his grasp before pressing it against his own forehead. After that, Han Li closed his eyes and fell as still as a statue. 2 months later, the jade slip on Han Li's forehead had disappeared, and there were bolts of bright golden lightning flashing all around him. The lightning then quickly converged to form a ball of lightning that rapidly swelled to the size of a wash basin. Immediately thereafter, Han Li opened his mouth to release a burst of silver spirit flames, which transformed into a sea of flames to envelop the entire ball of lightning. The ball of lightning rumbled incessantly while revolving rapidly within the sea of flames, and the golden runes on its surface began to flash erratically, seemingly reflecting some type of mysterious change that was taking place. Meanwhile, Yang Deer was still meditating in the belly of that small mountain on the Thunder Continent with the small green vial beside it, and it seemed that it hadn't moved at all in the past few months. All of a sudden, the small green vial shuddered slightly before releasing a burst of green light alongside some faint spatial fluctuations. Yang Deer immediately opened its eyes before rising to its feet and extending a respectful bow toward the small vial. "Welcome back, Master." As soon as its voice trailed off, golden light flashed from the opening of the vial, and Ma Liang emerged into the open. "You did well. I've completely recovered from my injuries, so we can leave this place now," Ma Liang said. "Yes, Master." Yang Deer naturally didn't dare to raise any objections. Ma Liang nodded in response before stowing the small green vial away up his sleeve, then opened his mouth to release a black and white formation plate. The formation plate was octagonal in shape, and it was riddled with black and white runes. Ma Liang tossed the formation plate forward, and it immediately transformed into a burst of black and white chi before shapeshifting incessantly into a mirror, then a scroll, then into some other type of treasure. Ma Liang pointed a finger at the treasure, and in the instant his finger came into contact with the black and white chi, the latter transformed into a fist-sized translucent ball. Immediately thereafter, Ma Liang began to chant an incantation before flicking several red incantation seals through the air, all of which quickly vanished into the translucent ball. A ghostly crimson face appeared on the surface of the ball amid a flash of crimson light, then turned toward a certain direction before letting loose a low roar. In the next instant, the ghostly face self-detonated and disintegrated on the spot. "HMPH, looks like those two have left this continent. That direction is where the Tian Yuan continent is situated, right?" Ma Liang asked as he turned toward Yang Deer. The Tian Yuan continent does indeed lie in that direction, Master, Yang Deer immediately replied. All right, I've completed all of the blood sacrifices I need, so it's about time I focus on the task assigned to me. My secret technique failed to register anything on the Blood Sky continent and Thunder continent, so it looks like that traitor is situated on the Tian Yuan continent, Ma Liang murmured to himself. After that, he opened his mouth to swallow the translucent ball again, then instructed, "Take me to the nearest intercontinental teleportation formation. I want to go to the Tian Yuan continent." "Yes, master, please come with me," Yang Deer immediately replied with a respectful bow. Thus, the two of them flew out of the belly of the mountain as two streaks of light, then sped toward a certain direction. In the air above a secluded valley on the Tian Yuan continent, the six-winged frost centipede was appraising the four grand ascension stage elderly men before him with a grim expression, while the ice phoenix had a surprised look on her face. After the two of them arrived back on the Tian Yuan continent, they had planned to find a secretive place to go into seclusion in order to facilitate recovery, but only less than a year had passed before these unfamiliar grand ascension stage beings had tracked them down. Even though there were only 4 grand ascension stage beings present, the six-winged frost centipede could sense that there were all types of restriction fluctuations in the area, so there was no way that he would be able to escape even with his profound movement techniques. "Who are you? Are you here for me?" the six-winged frost centipede asked with a cold expression. "Hee, there's no need to be alarmed, fellow Taoist. We bear no ill will toward you. We would simply like to invite you to come with us as we have something to discuss with you," a round-faced elderly man said with a smile. "I'm not going anywhere," the six-winged frost centipede retorted. "I'm afraid that's not up to you," the elderly man said in an unhurried manner. "Haha, do you really think the 4 of you and this formation will be enough to take me down? It'll be a simple task for me to kill you all and break out of this formation," the six-winged frost centipede chuckled coldly. "Oh, then what about if I get involved as well?" Another elderly voice rang out up above. "Letter 1D65B, letter 1D493, letter 1D4E, letter 1D65A, letter 1D500, letter 1D486, letter 1D658, letter 1D490, letter 1D4AT. "Who's there?" The six-winged frost centipede immediately cast his gaze upward in an alarmed manner. A red-haired elderly man had appeared over 1,000 feet above him, and was appraising him with a hint of a smile on his face. The man was giving off no aura whatsoever, and the six-winged frost centipede's pupils immediately contracted slightly upon sweeping his spiritual sense toward the elderly man. "I am Ming Zun, and I would like to invite you to visit our trade guild," Ming Zun said with a smile. Chapter 2410, Imminent Tribulation. Ming Zun of the He Lion Trade Guild," the six-winged frost centipede exclaimed. Given the resounding reputation of the He Lion Trade Guild, he had naturally heard of it in the past. I didn't think that you would know of me, fellow Taoist. Rest assured, we're extending this invitation to you so that we can vanquish the true immortal that's wreaking havoc in our spirit realm. We bear no ill will toward you," Ming Zun said with a smile. The six-winged frost centipede's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. Has he already arrived on the Tian Yuan continent? "We have no information indicating that yet, but I think it's only a matter of time. You must also be of the same opinion, given your reaction," Ming Zun replied in an unhurried manner. "HMPH, seeing as even you've gotten involved, it looks like I have no choice but to comply. I'll come with you, but I'm currently at a critical juncture where I need to recover my energy." The six-winged frost centipede finally decided to compromise, but at the same time, he took advantage of the situation to state a condition. "Haha, that's not an issue. If you come with us, our trade guild will cover all of the pills required for your recovery. By the way, this is fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix, right?" Ming Zun asked as he turned toward the Ice Phoenix. The Ice Phoenix faltered slightly upon hearing this, then extended a respectful curtsy toward Ming Zun as she replied, "I am. How do you know about me, senior?" "There's no need for formalities, fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix. I recently met with fellow Taoist Han of the human race, and he asked me to look after you if I ever encountered you," Ming Zun replied in a benevolent manner. A hint of elation appeared on the Ice Phoenix's face upon hearing this, and she said in a respectful manner, "I understand. I'm also willing to accompany you to your trade guild, senior." In contrast, the six-winged frost centipede's expression darkened slightly at the mention of Han Li. "Thank you for your cooperation, fellow Taoists. There are some things that I wanted to discuss with you along the way, Mingzun said with a smile, then made a hand seal, and an azure boat that was over 1,000 feet in length emerged up above amid a burst of violent spatial fluctuations. At this point, the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix naturally weren't going to change their minds, and thus, they flew onto the giant boat, which then sped away as a ball of azure light. A month later, Han Li was refining his divine devilbane lightning in the secret chamber of the Azure Origin Palace when his expression suddenly changed slightly, and he released an azure talisman out of his sleeve. The talisman transformed into several lines of azure text that hovered in midair, and Han Li's eyes narrowed slightly upon reading the message. So those two have already been tracked down. The He Lion Trade Guild really is efficient. It looks like a collaboration will be possible, but I can't go to meet them right away, so I'll have to send someone in my stead to ask some questions. Han Li murmured to himself before making a hand seal, then made a voice transmission. At the same time, his voice rang out in the ears of Patriarch Huashi, who was cultivating in another secret chamber in the Azure Origin Palace. His eyes immediately sprang open, and after listening to Han Li's instructions, he departed from the secret chamber. Half a day later, Patriarch Huashi left the Origin Integration Island. 3 months later, the armored boar race was one of the top 10 most powerful races on the Tianyuan continent. In a restricted area of that race, over 100 burly pig-headed armored boar guards were standing outside a massive hall. All of a sudden, faint buzzing rang out within the hall, accompanied by a burst of spatial fluctuations. Several of the most powerful beings among the guards exchanged a bewildered glance upon detecting this, then immediately made their way into the hall. After passing through a few corridors, they arrived at a huge hall that was enshrouded under a white light barrier. Within the light barrier was a giant formation that was around an acre in size, and it seemed to be in the process of being activated. What's going on? Why is there someone teleporting here from another continent? General Fei, did you receive any orders in advance? One of the guards asked in a cold voice. Our teleportation hall hasn't received any orders. Could it be that a senior of our race is teleporting here urgently and hasn't had a chance to inform us in advance? A guard with a claymore strapped to his back replied with a shake of his head. That's a possibility. In any case, we'll know who it is soon, the first guard said as his brows furrowed slightly, and he made a hand gesture indicating for everyone to be on their guard. All of the guards immediately interpreted this hand gesture and fanned out to block the exit. Almost as soon as these measures were taken, a burst of light erupted from the center of the formation, and a pair of humanoid figures emerged. The first guard's expression changed drastically upon seeing this, and he yelled, "You two aren't members of our race. Who granted you access to the intercontinental teleportation formation on the other end?" Why would I need permission when I could just kill the people on the other end? One of the humanoid figures chuckled coldly in response. These two were none other than Ma Liang and Yang Deer, and the latter was appraising the armored boar guards outside the light barrier with a bloodthirsty expression. "These are enemies. Raise the alarm right away," the guard with the claymore on his back immediately yelled while hurriedly drawing his claymore. The other guards instantly sprang into action, and one of them raised a hand to release a red talisman, which shot out of the roof of the hall in a flash. In the next instant, a crimson fireball appeared above the hall before exploding amid a resounding boom. The nearby guards were quite alarmed to see this, and most of them rushed into the hall, while the rest of them hurriedly retreated before pulling out a series of formation treasures, which were hurled up into the air. Wisps of 5-colored light surged out of these formation treasures, forming 36 giant copper pillars that plummeted out of the heaven to surround the entire hall. Each pillar was over 1,000 feet in length, and was crimson in color with countless silver spirit runes etched on their surfaces. The retreating armored boar guards' expressions eased slightly upon seeing this, and they cast their eyes out of the hall. All of a sudden, the entire hall exploded like a volcanic eruption amid a resounding boom, sending countless pieces of rubble flying in all directions. However, all of the rubble was stopped in their tracks by a fiery barrier that appeared between the copper pillars, then incinerated into nothingness. At this point, the guards who had rushed into the hall earlier were nowhere to be seen. The remaining armored boar guards were naturally extremely alarmed to see this, and right at this moment, Ma Liang and Yang Deer flew out of the wreckage. Yang Deer was holding a round object in its hand, which it was chomping on like a snack. "General Fei, one of the guards exclaimed as he identified the round object to be the head of their general. Attack! At this point, it was clear that all of the guards who had rushed into the hall had been killed, and all of the guards immediately activated their formation treasures. 5 colored light flashed once again, and each of the 36 crimson pillars released a pillar of red light directly toward Yang Deer. Hee, you think such a pitiful restriction can harm me? Yang Deer chortled as its body expanded drastically like a balloon, and at the same time, it donned a suit of yellow armor. The pillars of red light struck the suit of armor one after another, only to instantly fizzle out, while Yang Deer remained completely unscathed. It would be rude not to return the favor. Yang Deer chuckled coldly as a giant black axe appeared in its grasp before being swung viciously through the air. A round black blade projection erupted forth in all directions, and the 36 crimson pillars were sliced in half at once, while the red light barrier also faded. Just as Yang Deer was about to slay the rest of the armored boar guards, an impatient look appeared on Ma Liang's face and he said, "Let's go. What's the point in killing these small fry? We have important matters to attend to." "Yes, master," Yang Deer hurriedly replied in a respectful manner, and the black axe in its hand disappeared before it instantly reverted back to its original size. After that, the two of them departed as 2 streaks of light, completely disregarding the remaining guards. In no more than an hour, the two of them had traveled a distance of millions of kilometers. Just as they were about to emerge from a grassland onto a giant mountain range, Ma Liang's expression suddenly changed slightly as he stopped in his tracks. Yang Deer immediately followed suit before asking, "What is it, master?" Chapter 24:11, Grand Elder of the Armored Boar Race. "There's someone with a death wish pursuing us," Ma Liang replied. "Leave them to me, master," Yang Deer said in a respectful manner. "The pursuer is quite powerful. You may not be able to defeat them easily," Ma Liang replied with a shake of his head. Yang Deer faltered slightly upon hearing this before a thought suddenly occurred to it. They're that powerful. Could it be the most powerful being of the armored boar race? What a coincidence. "Oh, you know who our pursuer is?" Ma Liang asked as an intrigued look appeared in his eyes. "If I'm not mistaken, the pursuer should be the #1 Grand Elder of the armored boar race. Apparently, his powers aren't inferior to those of us true spirits, and he ranks among the top 5 most powerful beings of the entire spirit realm," Yang Deer replied. "Top 5, eh? No wonder he dares to pursue us all on his own. In that case, I'll refine his soul into the main spirit of my myriad spirit blood seal," Ma Liang chuckled coldly. Immediately thereafter, he swept a sleeve through the air to release a small crimson seal, which vanished into thin air as a ball of crimson light. Yang Deer's expression changed slightly at the sight of the seal. Back when it had faced Ma Liang in battle with the other 2 true spirits, it had witnessed the power of this treasure firsthand. Even the 3 true spirits combined hadn't been able to contend with this seal, which was why they had been forced to activate the chains of laws as a last resort. Letter 1D4BB, letter 1D633, letter 1D626, letter 1D626, letter 1D638, letter 212F, letter 1D624, letter 1D45C, letter 1D62E. All of a sudden, a loud thunderclap rang out, and a flying bone carriage appeared in the distance amid countless arcs of silver lightning. The carriage then drew to a halt, just over 1,000 feet away from Ma Liang and Yang Deer. At the front of the carriage stood a thin, elderly man from the armored boar race. The man had a head of long gray hair and a pair of green eyes, and there were around a dozen bone rings of different sizes around his arms. There were also 2 murky gray flags on his shoulders, each of which was several feet tall with countless ghostly shadows on their surfaces, and they were releasing bursts of ghostly howls. "You're a true spirit," the elderly man exclaimed as soon as his gaze settled on Yang Deer. Yang Deer was quite taken aback to hear this, but it remained expression as it replied, "Oh, I'm surprised you managed to recognize me right away. Why has a true spirit like you slain so many juniors of our race and destroyed our intercontinental teleportation formation?" the elderly man asked. "Those juniors dared to oppose my master, so they had to die to atone for their actions," Yang Deer replied in a nonchalant manner. "Your master?" The elderly man was astonished to hear this, and he immediately directed his gaze toward Ma Liang. All of a sudden, he recalled a piece of news that he had recently received, and his heart immediately jolted violently. However, his expression remained unchanged, and he put on a calm smile as he replied, "I see, so it was those juniors who overstepped their boundaries first. In that case, I apologize in their stead. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave now." As soon as his voice trailed off, the elderly man flew back on his bone carriage amid a flash of countless arcs of lightning. "Hee, you're not going anywhere." A cold smile appeared on Yang Deer's face as it took a step forward while making a grabbing motion, and the giant black axe reappeared in its grasp before being swung viciously through the air. A black blade projection erupted out of the axe, transforming into a black wave that swept directly toward the bone carriage. The elderly man's expression darkened slightly upon seeing this, and one of the bone rings around his arms immediately sprang forth before swelling to around an acre in size. Countless gray runes then appeared on its surface, and it crashed directly toward the gray blade projection. An earth-shattering boom rang out as the black blade projection was vanquished, while the bone ring reverted back to its original size and was sent flying back. However, the bone carriage wasn't slowed down in the slightest, and in the blink of an eye, it was over 10,000 feet away. Just as the elderly man heaved an internal sigh of relief and was about to focus on getting away, a mountainous crimson seal projection suddenly appeared out of thin air amid a rumbling boom before slowly descending from above. The seal appeared to be moving extremely slowly, but it instantly appeared above the bone carriage, then released a burst of law fluctuations that locked the carriage into place. The elderly man's heart jolted upon seeing this, and he hurriedly released the two flags on his shoulders, which swelled to over 100 feet in length in a flash, then released hundreds of malicious ghosts, all of which were at the body integration stage and were releasing fearsome baleful chi. At the same time, the dozen or so bone rings around the elderly man's arms also shot forth, and all of them displayed different powers as they hurtled directly toward the giant seal projection. A string of resounding booms rang out, and the bone rings struck the seal projection one after another before instantly shattering. As for the hundreds of malicious ghosts, all of them were destroyed after being swept up by the law fluctuations being released by the projection. All the while, the giant seal projection was still descending from above. The elderly man's expression changed drastically upon seeing this, and he immediately made a hand seal before injecting his magic power into the flying carriage beneath him in a frenzy. Arcs of silver lightning flashed erratically over the surface of the bone carriage, and it transformed into a five-clawed bone dragon that let loose a thunderous roar before attempting to teleport away. Ma Liang gave a cold harumph upon seeing this, then pointed a finger at the giant crimson seal projection from afar. The projection immediately shuddered as a series of crimson runes appeared on its surface before vanishing in a flash. At the same time, a string of dull thumps rang out around the bone dragon, and countless crimson tentacles shot out of thin air before binding onto the bone dragon like restrictive chains. The dragon struggled with all its might as lightning flashed all around it, but it was unable to escape from these tentacles. The elderly man's heart sank slightly upon seeing this, and he immediately opened his mouth to expel several mouthfuls of blood essence, which drifted onto the bone dragon's body as clouds of blood mist. The bone dragon's body immediately swelled drastically in size amid a thunderous roar, instantly reaching over 10,000 feet in length, attempting to break free from the crimson tentacles with its sheer size. However, the tentacles around the bone dragon's body also grew alongside it and refused to let go. Finally, it transformed into a river of blood that completely trapped the bone dragon, and the elderly man's heart sank even further upon seeing this. He swept his spiritual sense up toward the giant seal, and a hint of fear surfaced in his eyes as he detected the enormous power of laws imbued within the seal. "It looks like I have no choice but to stay. In that case, let me witness the power of your immortal secret techniques." The elderly man gritted his teeth as he laid a hand onto the top of his own head, and his nascent soul immediately emerged. In contrast with the elderly man himself, the nascent soul was wearing a suit of shimmering golden armor with a crimson spear in one hand and a white bone bell in the other. On top of that, it had a sinister ghostly face on the back of its head. As soon as the nascent soul emerged, it immediately summoned around a dozen identical projections. The projections raised their crimson spears in unison, releasing around a dozen streams of crimson flames that surged forth before converging to form a massive fiery python with a dozen heads. The heads all let loose a menacing hissing sound before the python pounced toward the giant seal projection, and at the same time, the small bone bells were also tossed forward before instantly swelling to around 10 feet in size, then began to release strings of crisp chimes. Interesting. It seems that the He Lion Trade Guild on the Tian Yuan continent is seizing the initiative and recruiting a large number of powerful beings to target me. I recall that one of the powerful beings I killed on the Blood Sky continent was also from that trade guild. Looks like it's about time I paid the guild a visit and razed it to the ground. Ma Liang chuckled coldly as he released the lifeless body of the elderly man, which plummeted straight out of the heavens. Overall, the He Lion Trade Guild is no less powerful than the Jiao Kai race. You have to proceed with caution, master, Yang Deer said in a respectful manner. After witnessing Ma Liang slaying someone no less powerful than itself with ease, any thoughts of betrayal that Yang Deer harbored had been completely erased. The more powerful this guild is, the greater the intimidatory effect on everyone else will be when I destroy it. Even though I'm not afraid of the alliance they're forming, I don't want it to delay the completion of my mission. However, prior to that, I have to use the secret technique to examine whether my target is actually on this continent, Ma Liang said in an unhurried manner. Chapter 24:12, The Trade Guild's Peril. Go ahead, master, I'll keep a lookout, Yang Deer immediately offered. All right, then I'll find a place somewhere up ahead to perform the secret technique, Ma Liang said. Thus, the two of them flew on directly toward the giant mountain range up ahead. Several hours later, Ma Liang was seated with his eyes closed on the peak of a massive mountain, while a black and white crystal ball was hovering before him, revolving incessantly in midair with a crimson ghostly face within it. Ma Liang pointed a finger at the crystal ball, and the ghostly face immediately turned toward a certain direction before opening its mouth to release a ball of crimson light, which vanished into Ma Liang's glabella in a flash. HMPH, so those two really did escape to this continent. That direction seems to be where the He Lion Trade Guild is situated. Could it be that they've sought refuge there? Ma Liang opened his eyes as a hint of surprise appeared on his face. The Trade Guild is plotting against you, so there's a chance that it could be providing protection to those two, Yang Deer speculated. That's good news. I'll be able to take care of all of them at once now. Ma Liang chuckled coldly before opening his mouth to swallow the crystal ball as a stream of black and white qi. Immediately thereafter, he laid a hand onto the top of his own head, and a five-colored nascent soul emerged amid a flash of golden light. The nascent soul was completely identical to Ma Liang, except its body had a translucent and glazed appearance. The nascent soul reached out with one hand, and a golden talisman immediately flew out of its body. The nascent soul then made a hand seal before flicking a string of incantation seals toward the talisman, following which a gray projection emerged from it. The projection depicted a handsome young man, but his eyes were completely vacant, and he was hovering still in midair with a black and white band of light and a talisman binding his body. The nascent soul switched to a different hand seal, and the five-colored light glowing from its body surged violently. At the same time, the projection of the handsome young man blurred slightly, and it suddenly flew toward a certain direction, but it only managed to travel just over 1,000 feet before it was viciously wrenched back by the black and white band of light. An ecstatic look appeared on the nascent soul's face upon seeing this. "Ha! I've finally found my target. It looks like I'll be able to return to the true immortal realm soon." Immediately thereafter, the nascent soul vanished on the spot alongside the golden talisman and the projection of the young man, following which Ma Liang opened his eyes with a hint of excitement on his face. He hadn't been expecting to track down his target so easily. Yang Deer hurriedly put on a fawning smile and said, "Congratulations on finding your target, master. Are we still going to the He Lion Trade Guild first?" After a brief moment of contemplation, Ma Liang replied, "I already know the rough location of my target, so I won't have to worry about him getting away. As such, we'll take care of the He Lion Trade Guild first. It won't take long anyway, and my myriad spirit blood seal requires a few more grand blood sacrifices for its refinement to be complete." Yang Deer naturally didn't raise any objections, and thus, the two of them set off toward a certain direction. Right as Ma Liang was using the golden talisman to detect his target, the golden spirit rune on an unconscious young man's face suddenly flashed once. The young man was bound by a series of rune chains and was trapped beneath a massive ice mountain within a restricted area of the spirit race's territory. Along with the flash of the spirit rune came a flutter of his eyelids, and a white-robed nascent soul immediately appeared before the young man within the ice mountain. The nascent soul inspected its surroundings with a tense expression, then directed its gaze toward the young man's face. A long while later, the nascent soul still hadn't discovered anything amiss, but instead of relieved, It only became more anxious as it made a hand seal before issuing a voice transmission. Shortly thereafter, a streak of white light shot forth from the distance, and the spirit monarch arrived in front of the ice mountain. "What's going on? Why did you summon me?" the spirit monarch asked with a serious expression. "Something seems to have happened just now, but I didn't discover anything after examining the restrictions in here. Have you noticed anything on your end?" the nascent soul asked. "Not at all. I've been standing on guard at the entrance this entire time, so I would have definitely noticed if something were amiss," the spirit monarch replied in a surprised manner. "In that case, what was that slight disturbance just now? He's clearly been completely sealed by me, and even his spiritual sense is completely immobilized," the nascent soul said with tightly furrowed brows. "That is indeed quite strange," the spirit monarch mused. "Have any major events taken place in the outside world recently?" the nascent soul suddenly asked. "Not that I can think of. Ever since the devilish beings retreated, everything has been normal aside from the fact that the human race is experiencing a resurgence," the spirit monarch replied with a stroke of his beard. The spirit monarch was quite powerful, but he kept an extremely low profile in the spirit realm, so the He-Lion Trade Guild hadn't invited him to join their alliance. As such, he was naturally completely oblivious to the presence of the true immortal in the spirit realm. "I may have been overly sensitive then. I'll examine the restrictions again, and if I still don't find anything, then it should just be a coincidence," the nascent soul said as its expression eased slightly. "All right, but as a safety precaution, I'll double the number of guards," the spirit monarch said. The nascent soul nodded in response before making a hand seal, upon which its body disintegrated into specks of white light within the ice mountain. As for the spirit monarch, he remained on the spot for a while longer with a contemplative expression, but in the end, he could only shake his head and depart as a streak of white light. What? That true immortal is suspected to have arrived on the Tian Yuan continent and is only half a month away from reaching our trade guild. Ming Zun's expression changed drastically upon hearing the report delivered by an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. Not only that, but the #1 Grand Elder of the armored boar race was also killed by him. After verifying this piece of news and the culprit's appearance, we were able to ascertain that it was the true immortal, the middle-aged man replied. Ming Zun sprang out of his chair and interrogated, "The territory of the armored boar race is quite far away from our trade guild. Why is it that you only received this news now?" "This true immortal is traveling extremely quickly. If it weren't for the fact that he was identified by a member of our trade guild as he was using a certain teleportation formation, we'd most likely still be oblivious to the fact that he's on the Tian Yuan continent," the man replied with a wry smile. "Has it already been verified that he's heading for our trade guild?" Ming Zun asked. "There are no other major powers aside from our guild along the path that he's traveling, so there shouldn't be any mistake. Could it be that he's already learned about our plan to forge an alliance to target him?" the man speculated. "That does appear to be the case, and this information was most likely leaked by that Grand Elder of the armored boar race. I once extended an invitation to him, and seeing as he was killed by that true immortal, his soul must have been searched. Otherwise, there would be no way to explain this," Ming Zun said with tightly furrowed brows. "Letter 1D4F, letter 1D667, letter 1D65A, letter 1D486, letter 1D666C, letter 1D65A. Letter 1D658, letter 1D664, letter 1D662. What do we do now? Half a month definitely isn't enough to gather all of the powerful beings we recruited. Who would have thought that he would come straight for our trade guild?" the man said in a panicked manner. "Calm down. The only thing we can do now is split up our trade guild for now in order to buy some time for the powerful beings we've recruited," Ming Zun said. The middle-aged man faltered slightly upon hearing this, while Ming Zun continued, "In contrast with other major sects or races, our trade guild doesn't have a massive population, nor a set territory. All we have to do is scatter our members for now, and that true immortal won't be able to do anything," Ming Zun said in a calm manner. "That's a great idea. I'll begin preparing for mass evacuation right away," the man said as an elated look appeared on his face. "Hold on, aside from preparing for evacuation, contact the powerful beings we've recruited and gather them to Sky S beyond at Baleful Cry Point. The baleful chi there is extremely abundant, so it's perfect for summoning the ancient true spirits worshipped by our trade guild," Ming Zun said in a confident manner. "That would naturally be the best place to battle the true immortal, but will he be willing to go there?" the middle-aged man asked in a hesitant voice. That's where the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix come in, Mingzun said with a cold smile. I see. An enlightened look appeared on the middle-aged man's face upon hearing this, and he extended a respectful bow before departing from the hall. Following the man's departure, Mingzun sat back down on his chair as a contemplative look appeared on his face. In the Azure Origin Palace, Han Li was seated on a futon with a ball of purplish golden lightning hovering above his hand. The ball of lightning was only around the size of a human fist, but it was completely silent, presenting a very peculiar scene to behold. Chapter 24:13, Baleful Cry Point. After appraising the ball of lightning for a short while, Han Li suddenly hurled it through the air with a flick of his wrist, and it flew several tens of feet forward before exploding. Bolts of purplish golden lightning erupted forth in all directions, and a gray hole appeared in the air. Even though the hole was only around the size of an egg, faint spatial fluctuations were emanating from it, and an elated look appeared on Han Li's face as he murmured to himself. As expected, it's able to directly tear through space. This refined divine devilbane lightning is far more powerful than I expected. Right at this moment, a faint buzzing sound rang out within his sleeve, and Han Li faltered slightly before sweeping his sleeve through the air to release an azure talisman amid a flash of spiritual light. As soon as it appeared, the talisman began to release a series of azure characters that quickly converged to form a message. Han Li only took a brief look at the message before his expression changed slightly. As expected, that true immortal has arrived on the Tian Yuan continent. In that case, I have no choice but to take action. It would be best if we could seal him or force him out of the spirit realm without the human race being harmed in the process. With that in mind, Han Li immediately pointed a finger at the azure message, then quickly swiped his finger through the air a few times. The message immediately blurred before transforming into another message, which quickly vanished into the azure talisman. After that, Han Li stowed the talisman away before rising to his feet and departing from the secret chamber. Round an hour later, Han Li was sitting on the main seat in the hall of the Azure Origin Palace, issuing a series of instructions to everyone. Nangongwan was seated beside him with a calm expression, but there was clearly a hint of concern in her eyes. As for Hai Yueshan, Lan Yayar, and his other disciples, they were standing on his other side in a respectful manner. Even Silvermoon, who was in seclusion prior to this, was present and sitting beside Nangongwan. Letter 1D487, letter 1D493, letter 1D486, letter 1D486, letter 1D66C, letter 1D486, letter 1D484, letter 1D4F8, letter 1D4AT. This trip is going to be a perilous one, but I'm fairly confident in my ability to keep myself safe. However, prior to my departure, there are some things that I have to make clear. During my absence, Wanner will be managing the palace with the assistance of Yueshan and my other disciples. Silvermoon, you're currently at a critical juncture in your cultivation, so focus on that for now. If something were to happen to me, then activate this talisman. I left some instructions in the talisman, and all you have to do is do as it says. Han Li said as he flipped a hand over to summon a purplish golden talisman with arcs of lightning surging over its surface. The talisman was then hurled through the air, and it transformed into a bolt of purplish golden lightning that hurtled directly toward a pillar in the hall. A resounding boom rang out as the bolt of lightning transformed into a huge purplish golden rune that embedded itself several inches deep into the pillar. The edges of the indentation were very clean and sharp, as if the rune had been engraved on the pillar all along. Hai Yueshan and the other disciples naturally had no objections, and Nangongwan and Silvermoon also exchanged a glance before nodding in agreement. The next morning, Han Li departed from the Origin Integration Island alone and headed toward Deep Heaven City. Similar scenes were also taking place in some other races on the Tian Yuan continent. The Grand Ascension stage beings that were viewed as the pillars of those races had also been contacted by the He-Lion Trade Guild, and after some contemplation, most of them decided to travel to Sky's beyond as invited. There were even some Grand Ascension stage beings who were very confident in their own abilities and were embarking on this trip with excitement in their hearts. After all, the opportunity to slay an immortal didn't come around every day. If they were lucky, perhaps this would be a massive opportunity for them. Round half a month later, two humanoid figures were hovering in midair within the underground world of the He-Lion Trade Guild headquarters. Among the duo was a black-robed young man, and he was appraising the completely deserted surroundings with a dark expression. He had already inspected this entire underground area several times using his enormous spiritual sense, and not a single living being could be found. It was as if they had all disappeared from the face of this realm. Even the restrictions and formations here had been disassembled, leaving not even a single spirit stone behind. Master, it looks like the He-Lion Trade Guild must have been tipped off in advance and evacuated, Yang Deer said in a respectful manner. It was quite surprised that the vastly renowned He-Lion Trade Guild had retreated without even putting up a fight. HMPH, I have to commend them on making a smart decision to run away from me. So be it, I'll track down those two insects first then. With my soul mark planted in their bodies, there's no way they'll ever be able to truly escape from me. Once I hunt them down, perhaps we'll even be greeted with a pleasant surprise, Ma Liang harumphed coldly. An enlightened look appeared on Yang Deer's face upon hearing this. You don't mean? That's right. Last time those people used those two as a lure, and that obviously didn't end well for them, but it seems like someone else is trying to repeat this ploy, Ma Liang said as a cold look flashed through his eyes. After a brief pause, he continued, Let's go. Those two aren't particularly impressive when it comes to their cultivation, but they possess a special movement technique that makes it rather troublesome to hunt them down. Having said that, they should be on the verge of running out of energy. Even with spirit pills at their disposal, they won't be able to recover much in a short time. This time, I'm going to make sure they don't get away. Immediately thereafter, he made a hand seal, and a rainbow cloud appeared beneath his feet before carrying him up into the air. Yang Deer hurriedly followed along as a streak of light. Meanwhile, the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix were situated in a branch of the He-Lion Trade Guild countless kilometers away, listening carefully to what Ming Zun was currently telling them. With this divine wind boat and these talismans, there's no way that true immortal will be able to catch up to you in a short time. Our trade guild's request is very simple. Lead the true immortal on a wild goose chase, then lead him to Sky's beyond at Baleful Cry Point, and you'll have made a significant contribution to our cause, Ming Zun said with a serious expression. I don't care about your cause, just don't forget what you promised me, the six-winged frost centipede replied in a cold voice. After hearing about the treasures described by Ming Zun, he was confident that he would be able to succeed in this task. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so compliant. Rest assured, I'll speak to fellow Taoist Han to ensure that he doesn't target you within the next 1,000 years. I'm sure fellow Taoist Han would be willing to do me that favor. As for the items requested by fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix, I'm afraid we don't have all of them at the moment, but we'll do our best to gather everything after the event, Ming Zun said with a smile. Just do your best, Senior, the Ice Phoenix replied with a wry smile. If that's all you have to say, then we'll be setting off now. With that true immortal's speed, it'll most likely only take him a day or two to find this place, the six-winged frost centipede said. Go ahead, fellow Taoists. This branch will also be evacuated following your departure, Ming Zun replied with a nod. Thus, around an hour later, an azure flying boat emerged outside the branch amid a dull thump, then flew away as a streak of azure light. Shortly thereafter, around 100 more streaks of light shot out of the branch before splitting up into several groups and flying away in different directions. 2 days later, a rainbow cloud appeared above the branch, and after a short pause, a cold harumph rang out from within the cloud, following which a thick pillar of lightning crashed down from above, instantly incinerating the entire branch into ashes. After that, the cloud quickly departed. Close to a month later, an event that shook the entire continent took place. The Thin Reed race was renowned as the race that was most adept in illusion techniques on the entire Tian Yuan continent. Recently, the population of over 10 million Thin Reed beings in the race's main city had been wiped out in a blood sacrifice. The two Grand Ascension Stage elders guarding the city were tipped off in advance and immediately fled, thus making them the only two survivors. As a result, the nightmare of the bloodthirsty true immortal officially descended upon the Tian Yuan continent. Many of the races near the Thin Reed race were horrified by this news, and they all sent out people to verify its authenticity. Meanwhile, close to 20 of the most powerful beings on the Tian Yuan continent had arrived at Baleful Cry Point one after another. So this is Baleful Cry Point. The density of Baleful Yin Qi is here truly astounding, Han Li murmured to himself as he looked on at the boundless blackish-green landscape up ahead. Even with his vast wealth of experience, such dense Baleful Yin Qi still came as quite a surprise to him. The baleful yin qi here was virtually visible to the naked eye, and it would be enough to drive the average cultivator insane. Baleful Cry Point was a vastly renowned restricted area in this region, and just as Han Li was about to fly on ahead, his expression suddenly changed slightly as he cast his gaze toward another direction. Moments later, a burst of rumbling rang out in that direction, and it was steadily becoming louder, as if there were some type of gigantic creature approaching from afar. Chapter 24:14, Skies Beyond. Han Li's expression remained unchanged, and he stood still on the spot as he continued to look on into the distance. The soil on the horizon suddenly began to churn and bulge, as if there were some type of giant creature rapidly approaching Han Li from underground. Han Li's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, but before he had a chance to do anything, a silver giant that was several hundred feet tall emerged from the soil. The giant had a head of long green hair, and his upper body was completely bare, while an azure leather kilt covered his lower body. His bulging muscles were of a shimmering silver color, as if they were constructed from silver, and with just a single stride, the giant covered a distance of thousands of feet, causing the nearby ground to tremor violently. A hint of surprise flashed through Han Li's eyes at the sight of the silver giant, and right at this moment, the giant sprang up into the air, then let loose a low roar before thrusting his palm viciously toward the ground down below. Two earth-shattering booms rang out as the earth within a radius of several kilometers around the giant completely collapsed, creating a small basin that was over 1,000 feet deep. A sharp cry rang out as a massive yellow beast rushed out of the basin, then fled toward the distance with all its might. However, the silver giant seemed to have anticipated this, and it appeared directly above the huge beast in a flash before stomping down viciously with a massive foot. As soon as the yellow beast and the silver foot came into contact with one another, the former immediately plummeted out of the heavens before being stomped into the ground amid a dull thump. Only then Han Li was able to identify the giant yellow beast as an earthy yellow turtle that was around 600 feet in length, and its shell was over 5 feet thick with sharp yellow spikes all over its surface. There was a single horn on its head, which was locked under the massive silver foot, and it was trying with all its might to withdraw its head back into its shell, but to no avail. In the next instant, the silver giant unleashed a series of silver fist projections that came crashing down in a frenzy. Letter 1D627, letter 1D4C7, letter 212F, letter 1D452, letter 1D4CC, letter 1D452, letter 1D4B8, letter 2134, letter 1D4C2. All of the fist projections quickly exploded upon the huge yellow turtle's body, and astonishing shockwaves were surging in all directions. Despite the turtle's incredible defensive prowess, its head was reduced to mincemeat within the span of just a few breaths, and even its shell had been shattered, allowing the silver giant to plunge his hand into its body before pulling out a head-sized yellow bead. The giant was ecstatic to see this bead, and he tossed it into his own mouth before devouring it. A burst of yellow light immediately flashed over his body, only to quickly fade after he made a hand seal. Right at this moment, the giant suddenly turned toward Han Li. His eyes were glowing with piercing silver light and completely devoid of pupils. He then rushed directly toward Han Li, and even before reaching Han Li, he yelled, "Are you here to attend the gathering at Sky's Beyond? I am Yin Gangzi of the Sky Dread race." "Greetings, fellow Yin Gangzi. I am Han Li of the human race," Han Li said as he cupped his fist in a salute. "You must be the fellow Taoist Han who slew the Stembor Queen in the Elder Devil realm. What a coincidence it is meeting you here. I've heard much about you." A hint of surprise flashed through the silver giant's eyes as he spoke, and he immediately made a hand seal, upon which his body shrunk down to a size similar to Han Li's. "You're far too kind, Brother Yin. I was very fortunate to have been involved in the slaying of the Stembor Queen. Similarly, I've heard much about your Sky Dread race. That form you displayed just now was the fortune physique of your Sky Dread race, right?" Han Li replied with a polite smile. The Sky Dread race was a vastly renowned race on the Tian Yuan continent. It didn't have a huge population, but all Sky Dread beings possessed incredible aptitude and were able to progress far more quickly in cultivation than the average being. Furthermore, once they attained the fortune physique, they would be able to instantly enhance their power by severalfold. The Sky Dread race was also one of the 4 most mysterious races of the Tian Yuan continent, and high-grade Sky Dread beings very rarely appeared before the public eye, so Han Li was quite surprised to be meeting one here. Hee, you're far too kind, fellow Taoist Han. The inner core of that earth turtle beast that I encountered on the way was quite useful to me, which was why I adopted my fortune physique to hunt it down. How about we head to Sky S Beyond together? Yin Gangzi offered. I would be honored, Han Li accepted. Haha, the honor is all mine. Let's continue onward. By the way, I have some questions about the true immortal that we're hunting. Ming Zun only gave me some very vague information, and I was wondering if you knew any further details, Yin Gangzi said in an elated manner. I met fellow Taoist Ming Zun once recently, so I do have some information. I'll do my best to answer your questions, Han Li replied with a smile. I'll have to thank you in advance then. Why don't you accompany me on my green wave carriage, fellow Taoist? Yin Gangzi said in an elated manner, then opened his mouth to expel a burst of green light, which transformed into a green flying carriage that was around 300 feet in length. The carriage was triangular in shape and was intricately constructed, giving off a faint, pleasant aroma. There were also 4 silver puppets standing at the front and back of the carriage, and Han Li accepted the offer, flying onto the carriage with Yin Gangzi. Moments later, the carriage shot forth deeper into the blackish-green landscape as a ball of green light, vanishing into the distance after just a few flashes. Half a day later, the flying carriage was flying through a sea of black winds at the center of Baleful Cry Point. All of a sudden, the black wind up ahead faded, and a strange world was revealed up ahead. At an altitude of several tens of thousands of feet, the entire region was split into 2 distinct halves, one black and one white. The lower half was still comprised of the sea of black wind, while the upper half was a white light barrier, within which hovered countless giant rocks. The smallest of these giant rocks were only around the size of houses, while the largest ones resembled giant islands, and all of these rocks had buildings constructed upon them. So this is Sky S Beyond. How interesting, Han Li mused with an intrigued expression as he stood at the front of the green flying carriage. This is indeed quite an interesting place. Apparently, this was once a restricted area of a major race in ancient times. However, that race disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and the baleful yin qi pouring out from underground in this region has made this place completely devoid of all living beings, Yin Gangzi said. During their trip, Han Li and Yin Gangzi had gotten along quite well, and it was as if they were a pair of old friends. Looks like that race must have invoked some type of insurmountable natural disaster that led to their disappearance. I don't think the actions of people could make an entire race disappear without any news emerging, Han Li speculated. Perhaps so. Oh, that looks like people from the trade guild coming to welcome us, Yin Gangzu said as he cast his gaze upward, just in time to see a white flying boat descending through the light barrier up above before approaching their flying carriage. Han Li and Yin Gangzi exchanged a glance before waiting at the front of the carriage, which slowly drew to a halt. Moments later, the white flying boat stopped beside the carriage, and a blue-robed man on the flying boat cast his gaze toward Han Li and Yin Gangzi before hurriedly extending a respectful bow. Welcome, Senior Han Li of the human race and Senior Yin Gangzi of the Sky Dread race. I was instructed by Master Ming Zun to welcome you and guide you to Sky S Beyond. You recognize us? Looks like fellow Taoist Ming must have shown you all of our portraits. Lead the way then, Yin Gangzi instructed in an expressionless manner. Yes, please come with me, seniors, the blue-robed man replied in a respectful manner before turning the flying boat back around and flying on ahead. The green flying carriage followed along at Yin Gangzi's behest, and around 15 minutes later, the carriage finally descended onto one of the massive levitating rocks in Sky S Beyond. On this giant rock was a massive white hall, at the entrance of which stood 2 rows of armed trade guild guards. Yin Gangzi stowed the flying carriage away before making his way toward the hall, and none of the guards made any effort to stop them. After entering the hall and passing through a short corridor, Han Li and Yin Gangzi were greeted by the sight of Ming Zun in a cavernous room. Ming Zun was currently conversing with a few other Grand Ascension stage beings, but he immediately rose to his feet in an elated manner and said, "Fellow Taoist Han, Brother Yin, I didn't think the 2 of you would arrive together." None of the other people in the room stood up, but all of them directed their attention toward Han Li's duo. Haha, fellow Taoist Han and I had a chance encounter on the edge of Baleful Cry Point, so we came here together. It's been several thousand years since we last met, but you're looking as healthy as ever, Brother Ming, Yin Gangzi said with a warm smile. Meanwhile, Han Li merely extended an obligatory greeting toward Ming Zun before directing his attention toward the other people in the room. Chapter 24:15. Gathering of Powerful Beings. Aside from Ming Zun, there were 3 men and 2 women in the hall. One of the 3 men was an imposing black-armored man with a menacing appearance, while another was a wizened elderly man holding a cane with the grip carved into the shape of an ornate dragon's head. As for the final man, this was a refined and elegant scholar who appeared to be around 20 years of age with a peculiar-looking azure bamboo tube strapped to his back. As for the 2 women, one of them was a yellow-robed Taoist nun who appeared to be around 30 years of age with a round face, while the other woman wore a green palatial dress with a slightly dark complexion and a pair of bright and intelligent eyes. "You're late, Yin Gangzi. If I recall correctly, you're always raring for a good battle, so I thought you'd arrive before everyone else," the black-armored man chortled. Yin Gangzi seemed to be quite familiar with the black-armored man, and he replied, "He, I encountered some slight trouble on the way here, so I was delayed for a few days. Otherwise, I would have definitely arrived before you, fellow Taoist Hua Ying. I've heard much about your fortune physique, brother Yin, but I never got a chance to see it during our previous encounters. Surely you'll be displaying it against a true immortal," the woman in the palatial dress said with a smile. Yin Gangzi seemed to be rather wary of this woman, and he put on a slightly forced smile as he replied, "My fortune physique is nothing compared to your bonded ability, Mistress Wu." As for the other 3 people in the room, none of them said anything, but it was clear from their expressions that they were quite familiar with Yin Gangzi as well. It was no wonder that this was the case. After all of them were vastly renowned Grand Ascension stage beings who had lived for countless years, so they would have all encountered one another at some point. As such, they were naturally rather intrigued by the unfamiliar face that was Han Li. "Who's this fellow Taoist, Brother Ming? I don't think I've ever seen him before," the Taoist nun asked with a smile. "This is fellow Taoist Han Li of the human race. He only progressed to the Grand Ascension stage not long ago, but I'm sure you've all heard of him," Ming Zun replied with a smile. A hint of surprise flashed through the Taoist nun's eyes upon hearing this. Han Li, the human Grand Ascension stage being who slew the Stembora Queen in the Elder Devil realm. "I can't take anywhere near full credit for slaying the Stembora. The rumors about me are far too exaggerated," Han Li replied with a smile. Everyone else in the room was also rather surprised to hear this. It was clear that all of them were at least somewhat aware of just how fearsome the Stembora Queen had been. In any case, that Stembora Queen was something that even true immortals were unable to tame. "With your inclusion, our chances of success will be greatly elevated," the black-armored man said. "Fellow Taoist Han, you only recently reached the Grand Ascension stage, so I'm sure you haven't had a chance to meet these fellow Taoists. Allow me to introduce them to you. This is fellow Taoist Hua Ying of the Giant Hand race. He's particularly adept in concealment arts. This is Mistress Wu of the Ancient Dawn race, who's renowned for her bonded Zhu Rong divine flames, which are capable of melting mountains and boiling oceans." Ming Zun took the initiative to introduce everyone to Han Li, and even though none of these people were particularly renowned among normal cultivators, it was clear that they were the ones who stood at the pinnacle of the entire spirit realm. "Brother Ming, we're taking on a true immortal here. Surely there are more people than this," Yin Gangzi said as he took a seat with Han Li. "Of course. Aside from the fellow Taoists gathered here, fellow Taoist Leng of the Golden Stone race, fellow Taoist Yun Dan and fellow Taoist Yue Shu of the Heavenly Cicada race, as well as Xuan Jiuling, will also be arriving soon," Ming Zun replied. Aside from Han Li, everyone's expressions changed slightly upon hearing this, and it was clear that these 4 were all very formidable beings. "I didn't think that Yun Dan and Yue Shu would agree to join this alliance. How did you manage to convince those 2, Brother Ming?" the young scholar asked with a wary look on his face. "HMPH, so that Xuan Bailing has changed his name to Xuan Jiuling. Looks like he must have slain another true spirit. That madman has become an obsessive cultivation freak, but I have to admit, his powers are becoming more and more unfathomable. I'm also very curious about how you were able to convince him to participate," Yin Gangzi said with a dark expression. 1. "It's very simple. For Yun Dan and Yue Shu, I promised them that our trade guild will do 3 things for them after the event, and they just so happen to have an important matter that requires the assistance of our trade guild. As for fellow Taoist Xuan Jiuling, I didn't even have to persuade him. He immediately agreed upon hearing that the opponent was a true immortal. For someone like him, the opportunity to face a true immortal is the best possible compensation, Mingzun explained. Considering how crazy he is, that actually makes a lot of sense, Yin Gangzi chuckled. As for the young scholar, his expression changed slightly upon hearing this, but he didn't say anything further in the end. I had invited some other fellow Taoists as well, but they either couldn't make it in time or had other important matters to attend to, so they won't be joining us. Otherwise, our chances of success would have been even higher, Mingzun said in a slightly forlorn manner. Is that true immortal really that fearsome? Even with all of us participating in this ploy, it sounds like you're still not fully confident that we'll succeed. According to the ancient tomes I reference, all true immortals who had descended into our spirit realm had been severely debilitated by the power of this realm. Surely there's no way he'll be powerful enough to contend with all of us, the elderly man holding the golden cane said. I'm well aware of this myself. If this were a normal immortal, we would naturally be able to crush him with ease. However, this is no ordinary immortal, Mingzun replied with a wry smile. Letter 1D4 BB, letter 1D4 C7, letter 1D4 52, letter 1D6 26, letter 1D6 38, letter 1D4 52, letter 1D4 B8, letter 2134, letter 1D6 2E. What do you mean? The elderly man faltered slightly upon hearing this, and everyone else was also rather befuddled. Judging from the feats of this true immortal on the other continents, I can tell you that he's definitely no ordinary immortal. Instead, the comparison between him and the average immortal would be similar to that between one of us and the average Grand Ascension stage being. On the Blood Sky continent, he slew 16 Grand Ascension stage beings in a single day, including 3 fellow Taoists who were no less powerful than myself. So we definitely can't afford to be complacent, Mingzun explained in a cautious manner. I heard that fellow Taoist Bai Ying had perished by his hands, and I also heard some rumors about him facing 3 true spirit beings on the Thunder continent. The latest news I received was that he had gotten himself a servant who is also quite powerful. Have you managed to find out who this servant is, fellow Taoist Ming? Mistress Wu Ling asked. You have some impressive sources of information, Mistress Wu. Indeed, the true immortal has recruited a new servant, and according to the results of our trade guild's investigation, we've ascertained this servant to be Yang Deer, one of the 3 true spirits summoned by the Jiao Kai race, Mingzun replied with slightly furrowed brows. What? Yang Deer was tamed rather than slain by the true immortal. Everyone was astonished to hear this, and a contemplative look also appeared on Han Li's face. That's right, I'm sure you all understand why I'm being so cautious now. Aside from all of the fellow Taoists I've recruited, I'll also be summoning the 4 powerful true spirits worshipped by our trade guild. On top of that, we'll be setting up the bipolar annihilation formation using a pair of profound heavenly treasures to ensure that he won't be able to escape. Your trade guild really is going all in here, Yin Gangzi said as he drew a sharp breath, and everyone else was also stunned to hear this. The duty of our trade guild's existence is to maintain peace in the spirit realm, and we won't allow even a true immortal to place that into jeopardy. Of course, considering the significant contribution our trade guild is making, if we manage to successfully defeat that true immortal, our trade guild will be taking a third of his treasures while the rest will be split among all of you. I'm sure no one will have any objections to that, Mingzun said. Everyone began to exchange hesitant glances upon hearing this, while Mingzun merely waited patiently for a response. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face upon seeing this, and he said, I have no objection to your trade guild taking a third of the treasures, but I have a condition. If you find any immortal secret techniques or cultivation arts in that true immortal's possession, I hope each of us can receive a replica free of charge. That's a great suggestion from fellow Taoist Han. I fully agree. I also support this proposal. Everyone's eyes immediately lit up upon hearing this, and they all offered their support. Mingzun's expression changed slightly in response, but after some brief contemplation, he decided to agree. Thus, everyone was very pleased, and their first impression of Han Li had also improved. After that, they discussed some matters surrounding the plan to target the true immortal, and the meeting concluded several hours later. Everyone settled into some of the buildings in Sky beyond, and Han Li flew over to a massive rock that was slightly further away before taking residence in a relatively intact pavilion. In Chinese letter Ba is 8, while Chinese letter Jiu is 9, so the number in Xuan Bailing's name increased to Xuan Jiuling. This clearly has something to do with the number of true spirits that he had slain in the past. Chapter 24:16, Xianxia. The next morning, Patriarch Xianxia appeared in the hall on the first floor of the pavilion, then relayed a message he had received during his meeting with the Ice Phoenix. So fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix was abducted by the six-winged frost centipede, and he's harboring a lot of animosity toward me. Is that correct? Han Li confirmed as he stroked his own chin in a contemplative manner. That's what fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix told me. On top of that, the six-winged frost centipede only agreed to act as lure after Senior Mingzun promised him that he would convince you to leave the six-winged frost centipede alone for the next 1,000 years. Patriarch Xianxia replied. I see. By the way, did you pass on those protective treasures I gave you to fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix? Han Li asked. I did. Good, you can go now. Before the battle begins, get as far away from here as possible, Han Li instructed. Patriarch she gave an affirmative response before taking his leave in a respectful manner. In the coming days, Han Li remained in his pavilion, meditating the entire time without leaving even once. During this time, not only did the other Grand Ascension stage beings who were yet to arrive finally show up, the Trade Guild was also setting up the bipolar annihilation formation. As for the two profound heavenly treasures acting as the formation core, they were surrounded by a layer of restrictions, and everyone was prohibited from approaching that area aside from Mingzun and several other Trade Guild elders. Interestingly enough, the true spirits that Mingzun had mentioned were still nowhere to be seen, and it was unclear whether they had concealed themselves or were only going to be summoned on the day of the battle. Close to a month later, Han Li was meditating in his pavilion when a crimson fireball suddenly appeared before him amid a burst of spatial fluctuations, then exploded on the spot, upon which a voice rang out in the room. Fellow Taoist Han, the true immortal is not far away from Baleful Cry Point, and we're about to commence our operation. Please come to the hall where we had our last meeting as soon as possible. A serious look appeared on Han Li's face upon hearing this, and he made a hand seal before flying out of the pavilion as a streak of azure light. Around 15 minutes later, everyone was gathered within the hall, and by the time Han Li arrived, there were already over 10 other Grand Ascension stage beings present, among which were several unfamiliar faces. In particular, there was a pair of cultivators who bore strong resemblance with one another that caught Han Li's attention. Both of them appeared to be around 20 years of age, and the man had a set of cold and handsome features, while the woman was very seductive and beautiful. However, both of them had a layer of reddish-purple baleful chi emanating from their bodies, and the space within a radius of several tens of feet around them would occasionally blur and warp, creating a very peculiar sight to behold. Yin Gangzi and the others were also appraising this duo, with a hint of wariness in their eyes. Meanwhile, Mingzun was sitting on the main seat, listening to a report being delivered by a middle-aged man. The six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix have already lured the true immortal to the edge of Baleful Aura Point. At their current speed, it would take around 5 more hours at most before they enter the area encompassed within the bipolar annihilation formation. All of our Trade Guild's disciples and elders have already gone on ahead, and the spirit summoning ceremony is also ready to commence, so we'll be able to summon those true spirits at any time. Good, begin the spirit summoning ceremony in an hour. As for the bipolar annihilation formation, no one is permitted to activate it without my orders. Everything else can proceed as planned. We'll all travel to the predetermined ambush spot soon. After that, leave everything to us, Mingzun instructed. The middle-aged man immediately gave an affirmative response before quickly departing. As you've all heard, all of the preparations are complete. We just need to work together to defeat that true immortal now. However, let me make one thing clear. If anyone tries to flee or back out, then don't blame me for turning on you, Mingzun said with a serious expression. Rest assured, Brother Ming, no one would back down at a time like this. That's right, if anyone tries to do so, we'll kill them together. All of the Grand Ascension stage beings quickly chimed in agreement. Fellow Taoist Ming, why is it that we Xianxia still isn't here? Could it be that he changed his mind? The man among the duo suddenly asked in a cold voice. Rest assured, fellow Taoist Yun Dan. Fellow Taoist Xianxia already arrived several days ago, but he's refining a powerful secret technique and has been assigned with another important task, and that's why he's absent, Mingzun replied in a polite manner. I see. We had heard that Xianxia was able to slay true spirits on his own, and we had always wanted to witness his powers, but haven't had the chance to do so. the woman by the name of Yue Shu said with a smile. It seemed that this duo harbored some animosity toward Xu and Jieling. Mingzun had no response to this and could only offer a wry smile. Thankfully, Yun Dan and Yue Shu didn't ask any further questions, and they began to converse with one another through voice transmission. Mingzun was quite relieved to see this, and he began speaking to everyone else. Right at this moment, Mingzun's voice transmission rang out in Han Li's ears, and a surprised look appeared on his face upon hearing what Mingzun had to say. However, he only considered what was being said briefly before nodding in response, and a hint of elation flashed through Mingzun's eyes upon seeing this. After a while, most of the Grand Ascension stage beings departed from the hall to travel toward the predetermined ambush spot, leaving only Mingzun, Han Li, Yun Dan, and Yue Shu in the room. Yun Dan and Yue Shu appraised Han Li with a hint of a surprise in their eyes before Yun Dan said, "Do you really want my sister and I to guard the profound heavenly treasures in the formation, fellow Taoist Ming? This is a very heavy responsibility, one that we may not be able to handle." You're far too modest, fellow Taoist. No one is more suited to this task than you and your sister. The bipolar annihilation formation is the key to success here. As long as the two profound heavenly treasure remain unscathed, the formation will be able to continue to operate, Mingzun replied. My sister and I have always stayed together, so we'll only be able to guard one formation core. As such, it looks like the other formation core will be guarded by this fellow Taoist. Will he be up to the task? Yun Dan asked in a skeptical voice. Han Li merely offered a slight smile and didn't respond to this rather rude question. Rest assured, fellow Taoist Han is extremely powerful in his own right, and I'm confident that he'll be up to the task, Mingzun replied. In that case, we'll take your word for it and follow your arrangement, Brother Ming, Yue Shu said with a smile before casting another curious glance toward Han Li. Mingzun was ecstatic to hear this, and he clapped his hands together as he said, "All right, I'll get someone to guide you to the formation core." A guard immediately strode in from outside the hall, before respectfully leading the duo out of the hall. Following their departure, Mingzun turned to Han Li with a serious expression and asked, "Fellow Taoist Han, you won't object to guarding the other formation core, right?" "You really do have a high opinion of me, Brother Ming. In that case, I can only do my best," Han Li replied in an unhurried manner. "Haha, this is an all-important task that I could only assign to you. With the three of you guarding the formation cores, the formation's safety will be assured," Mingzun chuckled. Han Li didn't say anything in response. Right at this moment, another guard strode into the hall, then extended a respectful bow toward Han Li before leading him out of the room as well. As soon as Han Li left, the smile on Mingzun's face faded, and his brows furrowed tightly in contemplation. Are you sure this true immortal has a way to disregard the power of laws of this realm and temporarily return to his full power? If that turns out to not be the case, then this plan of yours won't work. An unfamiliar male voice suddenly rang out, following which a humanoid figure emerged from Mingzun's shadow. Mingzun was completely unsurprised by this, and he replied calmly, "Rest assured, the footage of the battle on the Blood Sky continent that I received isn't very clear, but the golden giant in the footage is clearly the true immortal in his ultimate form. Otherwise, Bai Ying and the others wouldn't have been defeated so easily. The true key to this battle will be whether you can successfully land the killing blow. Otherwise, we'll suffer the same fate as Bai Ying and the others. As long as he recovers his true immortal body and gets caught off guard, there's no way he'll be able to withstand my 9 tribulation spirit vanquishing arts. This is an immortal secret technique passed down by my ancestors, and it specifically targets true immortal bodies. I had to refine the souls of 9 true spirits to attain the power to unleash this strike once, but it'll be more than enough against this descended true immortal," the blurry figure replied in a confident manner. "Indeed, that true immortal may be extremely powerful, but all of the measures we've prepared will force him to expend most of his powers, so there's no way he'll be able to evade your attack. Once you break his true immortal body, he'll only be slightly more powerful than the average true spirit, and that would make him an easy opponent to defeat," Mingzun said. "None of the others know about your plan, so it's hard to say how many of them will survive. Even those 4 true spirits are destined to act as cannon fodder, right?" the blurry figure said in a cold voice. "We have no choice. In the face of such a powerful true immortal, how can we hope to defeat him without making sacrifices? I've already cautioned everyone on multiple occasions about how formidable this true immortal is going to be. I can only hope that they've taken my advice to heart, Mingzun replied. Chapter 24:17, The Core Formation. What are you planning by getting those three to guard the profound heavenly treasures in the formation? The bipolar annihilation formation was also passed down by my ancestors, and as far as I know, the formation cores don't require any protection. If the true immortal really does manage to make it to the formation core, the formation will have already crumbled, the figure said in a curious manner. I have my reasons for doing this. Perhaps they'll survive by staying in the formation cores, Mingzun chuckled in response. As the shadow of our trade guild, I have no interest in whatever sneaky plans you have, but if we obtain true soul pills from that true immortal, then one must be given to me. With that pill, I'll be able to truly master the 9 tribulation spirit vanquishing arts, thereby giving me a chance to ascend to the true immortal realm. Even if this plan succeeds, your trade guild would be expending a massive price, the figure said. If we manage to obtain true soul pills, then you'll definitely be given one. As for the sacrifices our trade guild is making, those are necessary for success. Besides, I'm sure the treasures of such a powerful true immortal would be enough to make up for those losses, Mingzun replied. I certainly hope so. Now that everyone else has set off, I'll be going as well. Make sure you withstand at least the first wave of attacks from that true immortal. Otherwise, I'm not going to be saving you, the figure chuckled before vanishing into thin air again. Throughout this entire process, the figure's appearance had remained completely hidden. Following the figure's departure, Mingzun murmured to himself, "The same applies to you. If you fail in your surprise attack, you most likely won't be able to get away, and I won't save you either." At this point, Han Li had already been led into the bipolar annihilation formation by the guard from the trade guild. According to Mingzun's introduction, this formation was comprised of over 36,000 formation treasures, and was being powered by tens of thousands of top-grade spirit stones. The formation spanned most of Baleful Cry Point, and the 2 formation cores were situated very far away, with one located in the north, while the other was in the south. After flying along behind the guard for a while longer, Han Li finally arrived at the formation core he had been assigned to. This formation was comprised of a giant altar surrounded by 8 massive golden pillars. Layers of restriction fluctuations were emanating from the golden pillars, and the pillars were each surrounded by a group of armored guards. The altar itself was triangular in shape and extremely smooth. Its top half was enshrouded within a rainbow-like barrier, and at the very top, there was something flashing incessantly. This is the formation core, and all of these people are for you to use as you see fit, Senior Han, the guard said in a respectful manner as he offered a silver badge to Han Li with both hands. Of course, I'm quite interested in the profound heavenly treasure in the formation core, but I wouldn't jeopardize this entire plan just to satisfy my own curiosity, Han Li replied. Thank you for your understanding, Senior. I'll be taking my leave now. The guard extended a parting salute before flying back the way he had come. Only then did Han Li look down at the badge in his hand to find that it was glowing with silver light, and there were countless tiny runes engraved on its surface. The runes were arranged in an extremely profound pattern, striking the beholder with a sense of dizziness. After inspecting the badge for a short while, Han Li stowed it away before making his way toward the altar. We pay our respects to Senior Han. All of the guards present, of which there were close to 1,000, immediately extended respectful greetings toward Han Li. Han Li swept his spiritual sense toward these guards to find that most of them were at the deity transformation stage or spatial tempering stage, and there was a body integration cultivator leading each of the 8 groups. No need for formalities. Seeing as I'm in charge here, I'll establish one rule. Anyone who doesn't follow my orders will be killed, understood? Yes. The guards immediately answered in unison, then continued to stand on guard around the golden pillars. Meanwhile, Han Li vanished on the spot before appearing at the center of the white altar. After taking a glance at the altar beneath his feet, he sat down onto it with his legs crossed. All of a sudden, Taoist Zai's surprised voice rang out within his spiritual sense. This seems to the bipolar destruction formation of the true immortal realm. Bipolar destruction formation, shouldn't it be the bipolar annihilation formation? Han Li asked. No, the bipolar annihilation formation is also a type of immortal formation, but it's quite simple in design and mainly used to kill enemies. It's far less intricate and profound than the bipolar destruction formation, Taoist Zai replied. What additional abilities does this bipolar destruction formation have? Han Li asked. The bipolar destruction formations has 3 abilities: trapping, debilitation, and self-detonation, and all of those abilities are extremely troublesome to deal with even for a true immortal. In particular, self-detonation can be activated as long as a sufficiently powerful treasure or being is sacrificed within the formation cores, and the resulting explosion will be so powerful that it could even kill a high-grade true immortal, Taoist Zai explained. Han Li's heart immediately jolted upon hearing this. Self-detonation can be activated by sacrificing living beings. That's right. Both precious treasures or powerful living beings could be used as sacrifices. Once the sacrifice begins, everything within a radius of hundreds of kilometers around the formation core will be destroyed and reduced to energy to power the formation, Taoist Zai replied. Han Li's expression remained unchanged, but internally he was furious to hear this. So that's why Ming Zun asked the 3 of us not to leave the formation cores we're guarding. Taoist Zai continued, theoretically speaking, even the bipolar annihilation formation would be extremely difficult to set up in a lower realm, let alone the bipolar destruction formation, which is far more complex and profound. Judging from this formation core, this formation is still different from the bipolar destruction formation that I'm familiar with. The materials in the spirit realm naturally can't compare with those that can be found in the true immortal realm. Many substitutes were most likely used. As a result, the effects and power of this formation should also be impacted. Can you identify the specific differences? Han Li asked in a contemplative manner. I'm only a faux immortal puppet used in battle, not a formation-setting puppet. I can only see that this formation is different from its immortal counterpart, but I'm unable to identify the exact differences, Taoist Zai replied. That's quite troublesome. I want to take down that true immortal, but I certainly don't want to be destroyed with him as a sacrifice, Han Li said as a cold light flashed through his eyes. After a brief pause, Taoist Zai said, I have a method that you can use to save yourself. What is it? Han Li hurriedly asked. I can alter this formation core slightly so that the area you're currently situated in will be exempt from the destructive effect of the sacrifice, Taoist Zai replied in a calm manner. Han Li hesitated momentarily before arriving at a decision. All right, we'll do as you say. I require the help of your gold-devouring beetle monarch in order to be able to do this in a completely stealthy manner, Taoist Zai said. That's not an issue. Jin Tong, make sure to follow all of Brother Zai's instructions to a fault, Han Li replied before issuing an instruction to the gold-devouring beetle monarch in his spirit beast bracelet. After that, Han Li remained seated in a completely still manner, but a speck of golden light shot out of one of his fingertips, which was concealed up his sleeve, then vanished into thin air in a flash. In the next instant, a burst of faint spatial fluctuations undetectable even to body integration cultivators emerged near one of the golden pillars, following which a golden beetle around the size of a grain of rice appeared. The beetle landed on the pillar before crawling surreptitiously over its surface, leaving a trail of spirit patterns in its way that were almost too small to see with the naked eye. At the same time, Taoist Zai's instructions were ringing out within the golden beetle's spiritual sense, and a series of formation diagrams were also appearing in the beetle's mind. The guards around the golden pillar were naturally completely oblivious to this. After that, the other 7 pillars were also subsequently tampered with by Jin Tong in secret. High up in the sky in another area of baleful Cry Point, Yin Gangzi and the other Grand Ascension stage beings were concealed within a certain area of space, and all of them were waiting for something in silence. All of a sudden, Ming Zun appeared beside them amid a burst of spatial fluctuations. Letter 1D4BB, letter 1D45F, letter 212F, letter 212F, letter 1D464, letter 1D452, letter 1D44F, letter 1D4B8, letter 1D450, letter 1D62E. Brother Ming, why are you on your own? Where are the other 3 fellow Taoists? Mistress Wu Ling asked as her brows furrowed slightly. Rest assured, fellow Taoist Wu Ling, those 3 have been assigned with the task of guarding the 2 formation cores. As long as this formation doesn't crumble, we'll be able to face that true immortal with no concerns for our safety, Ming Zun replied. Chapter 24:18, Bet. But without those 3 fellow Taoists, our overall power will be severely reduced. Won't that be an issue? Also, where is fellow Taoist Xuan Jiyuling? Is he not going to be joining us? Yin Gangzi asked as his brows also furrowed slightly. There's no helping it. Those 3 must be assigned to guard the formation cores, so we don't have to worry about the formation being destroyed. After all, this is an immortal formation that will be an absolutely necessary trump card for us to overcome this true immortal, so the compromise had to be made. As for fellow Taoist Chuan Jieling, he has already arrived, Mingzun replied in an unhurried manner. As soon as his voice trailed off, another male voice rang out, seemingly out of thin air. Were you concerned that I would back out at the last minute? Rest assured, even if all of you had changed your minds, I would still face the true immortal on my own. After all, the opportunity to slay a true immortal doesn't come around every day. As expected of fellow Taoist Xuan, but seeing as you're already here, why aren't you coming out to meet us? Mistress Wu Ling asked. Everyone else's expression also eased slightly upon hearing this. I've always preferred to be alone, so I won't come out to meet you. All you need to know is that I'll definitely strike when the time is right, Xuan Jieling replied in an expressionless voice. The Grand Ascension stage beings present could only exchange speechless glances upon hearing this. At the same time, they were quite surprised that they were still unable to pinpoint Xuan Jieling's exact location. On the edge of Baleful Cry Point, a streak of azure light appeared before flying straight into the region. All of a sudden, the azure light faded to reveal a flying boat that was over 100 feet in length. At the front of the boat stood the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix, both of whom had unnaturally pale complexions. A hint of fear flashed through the six-winged frost centipede's eyes, and he said, "That was a close call. Not only does that madman not seem to be slowing down, it appears his stamina is only improving as this chase drags on. However, we should be safe for now. All we need to do is wait for a while so he can close down the distance between us a little, then lead him into the formation." Not only have we used up almost all of the pills and talismans given to us by the He-Lion Trade Guild, even the essential power that you and I had only just recovered were expended. If the Trade Guild can't bring down that madman here, then we won't even have a chance to escape anymore, the Ice Phoenix said with a dark expression. Mingzun proclaimed that he had recruited the most powerful beings on the entire continent, didn't he? That should include my former master. I hate to admit it, but that former master of mine really is quite formidable. With his inclusion, this plan will most likely be a success, the six-winged frost centipede said in an expressionless manner. The Ice Phoenix was rather surprised to hear this. I didn't think that you would be so confident in Brother Han. HMPH, if I weren't so wary of him, I wouldn't have raised that condition to Mingzun to persuade him not to come after me for the next 1,000 years. With those 1,000 years, I'll be able to reach a pinnacle in my cultivation, and I won't have to fear anyone in the spirit realm then, the six-winged frost centipede harumphed coldly. Is that so? If you ask me, with Brother Han's incredible aptitude, he'll be even more unfathomably powerful in 1,000 years. I dare say there's a possibility that he could ascend to the true immortal realm within the next 10,000 years, the Ice Phoenix said with a hint of mockery in her eyes. Haha, ascension isn't child's play. There are hundreds of grand ascension stage beings in the entire spirit realm, but have you heard of anyone successfully ascending within the past 100,000 years? Regardless of how incredible my former master's aptitude is, there's virtually no chance he'll be able to ascend to the true immortal realm, the six-winged frost centipede chortled. I'm very confident that Brother Han will be able to ascend. How about we make a bet if we manage to survive this ordeal? The Ice Phoenix proposed. The six-winged frost centipede was rather taken aback to hear this. What's the bet? It's very simple. The bet will be whether Brother Han will be able to ascend to the true immortal realm within the next 10,000 years, the Ice Phoenix replied. The six-winged frost centipede could tell that she wasn't joking, and he asked, "What are the stakes?" "You want me to become your dual cultivation companion, right? If I lose the bet, I'll become your Tao companion. However, if Brother Han manages to ascend in the next 10,000 years, then you have to promise me that wherever I go, you have to actively avoid me. Of course, during these 10,000 years, you're forbidden from harassing me," the Ice Phoenix replied in a cold voice. "Are you really that confident in him?" A hesitant look appeared on the six-winged frost centipede's face. "Are you scared? If you don't have confidence in your own judgment, then there's no need to accept this bet. You can just wait until you're captured by Brother Han and forced to become his spirit beast again," the Ice Phoenix said with a hint of a smile on her face. "Why would I be scared? I accept your bet, but I'm changing the stakes. You're planning to use this bet to restrain me for 10,000 years, so you have to take responsibility for your actions. If he can't ascend within the next 10,000 years, I'm not going to make you my Tao companion. Instead, You'll become my servant, and you won't be able to refuse any orders I give you. On top of that, both of us have to swear inner demon vows on this bet, the six-winged frost centipede said with a cold look in his eyes. All right, that's not an issue, the ice phoenix agreed without any hesitation. The six-winged frost centipede's heart jolted slightly upon seeing this, but he was confident that he would be able to win the bet, so after a brief hesitation, he opened his mouth to release a ball of blood essence. He then pointed a finger at the ball of blood essence, and it transformed into a crimson ghostly face. He then began to chant something while making a string of hand seals, swearing a vow to the ghostly face before him. The ice phoenix replicated his actions, expelling a mouthful of blood essence before swearing a vow of her own. After that, the two of them exchanged a glance, and both of them could see their own confidence mirrored in one another's eyes. However, before they had a chance to say anything to one another, the six-winged frost centipede's expression suddenly changed drastically as he cast his gaze toward a certain direction. At the same time, the sky in that direction dimmed, and a burst of rumbling rang out in the distance, quickly growing louder and louder. "We have to go," the ice phoenix hurriedly urged. The six-winged frost centipede immediately summoned a crimson pill that he tossed into his own mouth, following which the flying boat shot forth as a streak of azure light once again, vanishing into the distance after just a few flashes. Within the span of around a dozen breaths, a burst of crimson light appeared in the distance, following which a river of blood gushed forth at an incredible speed. Within the river of blood, there were 8 five-clawed blood dragons thrashing around with golden light surging out of their mouths. In the blink of an eye, the river of blood flowed into baleful Cry Point, directly pursuing the flying boat up ahead. Both the flying boat and the river of blood were traveling at an incredible speed, but the gap between them was quickly shrinking. After only about 15 minutes, the river of blood had become clearly visible to the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix. "Do we still have more of the wind evasion talismans given to us by Ming Zun?" the six-winged frost centipede asked. "There's only one left," the ice phoenix replied after a brief hesitation. "Then what are you waiting for? Use it right now," the six-winged frost centipede yelled. The ice phoenix immediately swept a sleeve through the air, releasing a shimmering silver talisman that vanished into the flying boat in a flash. In the next instant, countless silver runes appeared all over the surface of the flying boat, then instantly disappeared. A sharp screeching sound rang out from the flying boat, and it abruptly blurred before speeding up by around twofold, making it slightly faster than even the pursuing river of blood. HMPH, they're using the same trick again. I'm quite surprised that the wind evasion talismans of our true immortal realm can be found in a realm like this. Ma Liang harumphed coldly as he stood on the head of one of the blood dragons in the river of blood. Those talismans were most likely left behind in this world by immortals of ancient times. Otherwise, there's no way anyone in this realm would have been able to refine these immortal talismans, Yang Deer replied in a respectful manner. Even so, these talismans are quite annoying to deal with. Without their interference, I would have already captured those two a month ago, Ma Liang said, as a hint of impatience flashed through his eyes. Rest assured, Master, there definitely wouldn't be too many of these immortal talismans in this realm. Perhaps this is already their last one. Unbeknownst to Yang Deer, his optimistic statement had struck the nail on the head. Yang Deer, do you think this would be a good place to ambush me? Ma Liang suddenly asked as he swept his enormous spiritual sense through the surrounding area. Yang Deer's heart jolted upon hearing this, and he hurriedly asked, "Have you discovered something, Master?" "No, but the baleful yin qi here is extremely abundant, to the extent that even my spiritual sense is significantly restricted. This would be a perfect place to set a trap for me," Ma Liang said with a cold smile. Chapter 24:19 Mythical Black Beasts. Yang Deer's expression changed drastically upon hearing this, and he looked around to find that there was faint black baleful yin qi stretching as far as the eyes could see. On top of that, he discovered that he could only release his spiritual sense to encompass a radius of less than 10 kilometers. Don't worry, we had already anticipated that the powerful beings on this continent would try this. This plays right into my hands. Once I brush these fools aside, no one in the entire spirit realm would dare to plot against me, Ma Liang said with a cold smile. Letter 1D557, letter 1D5FF, letter 1D556, letter 1D4, 1E, letter 1D430, letter 1D5F2, letter 1D680, letter 1D428, letter 1D696. Be careful, Master. According to my knowledge, the He Lion Trade Guild is extremely powerful, and if they were to make a last-ditch effort, they would definitely be able to bring out many formidable trump cards, Yang Deer cautioned. How could an organization in a lower realm possibly pose a threat to me? Even if they also knew the method to activate chains of laws, it would be useless on this occasion, Ma Liang scoffed in a nonchalant manner. Yang Deer naturally didn't dare to say anything further upon seeing Ma Liang's confident display. At this point, the river of blood and the flying boat had already entered deep into Baleful Cry Point. All of a sudden, the flying boat abruptly blurred before vanishing mid-flight. Ma Liang's pupils contracted slightly upon seeing this, and the entire river of blood also drew to a halt at his behest. A wary look appeared on Yang Deer's face, and the suit of yellow armor immediately emerged over his body. Right at this moment, bursts of loud rumbling rang out in all directions as clouds of black baleful yin qi surged forth. A series of flags also appeared in the surrounding area before instantly swelling to over 1,000 feet in size, surrounding the entire river of blood like a ring of giant trees. At the same time, a round azure moon appeared in the sky, atop which stood around a dozen humanoid figures, all of whom were appraising the river of blood with grim expressions. These were none other than the Grand Ascension stage beings assembled by Ming Zun, and the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix were also among them. Ma Liang's expression remained unchanged as he glanced at the giant flags, then suddenly thrust a palm toward a certain direction. A resounding boom rang out as a massive crimson palm, that was around an acre in size, emerged from the river of blood, before thrusting toward the same direction. Five-colored light flashed from the giant flags, converging to form a massive five-colored light mirror. The massive crimson palm struck the mirror before vanishing into it in complete silence. At the same time, the giant palm appeared in a secluded corner of Baleful Cry Point, before striking a plot of empty land in a vicious manner, creating a huge crater that was several kilometers in size amid an earth-shattering boom. A hint of surprise appeared on Ma Liang's face upon seeing this. Oh, this is spatial transference, this formation appears to be. Right at this moment, a burst of loud buzzing rang out from the giant flags, and a series of five-colored light mirrors were quickly conjured up. Countless projections of humanoid figures, beasts, and buildings of all descriptions instantly appeared around the river of blood, striking the beholder with a sense of disorientation. Ma Liang's expression darkened slightly upon seeing this, and he made a hand seal, upon which black and white qi surged out of his back before also transforming into a black and white mirror. Initially, the mirror was only around the size of a human palm, but it quickly swelled to the size of a wash basin at his behest, and a black and white Tai Chi diagram appeared on its surface. The diagram released a pillar of black and white light. A sharp tearing sound rang out as all of the five-colored light mirrors around the river of blood were torn apart by the pillar of black and white light before disintegrating into specks of spiritual light. All of the Grand Ascension stage beings' expressions changed slightly upon seeing this, and the Yin Gangzu turned to Ming Zun before asking, "Brother Ming, you've been full of praise for this bipolar annihilation formation. Why is it that its power been dispelled by such a casual strike?" HMPH, a casual strike. If I'm not mistaken, that black and white mirror is most likely a treasure no less powerful than profound heavenly treasures. Otherwise, do you really think a normal attack could break those illusions so easily? Having said that, if he thinks that this is all it'll take to break this formation, then he couldn't be more wrong, Ming Zun harumphed coldly. Is that so? Yin Gangzi seemed to be rather skeptical, as was everyone else. As if to support Ming Zun's statement, right after the five-colored light mirrors were destroyed by the black pillar of light, a series of tiny white runes suddenly appeared near the river of blood. Initially, the runes were quite sparse, but in the blink of an eye, they were falling from the heavens like a dense snowstorm. At the same time, a burst of power of laws encompassed the entire river of blood. Inside the river of blood, Ma Liang was struck by a chilling sensation, and the air around him suddenly became more viscous. His expression changed slightly as he hurriedly tried to draw upon his own magic power, only to find that around a third of it had become sluggish and inaccessible. Meanwhile, Yang Deer was faring even worse. In the instant that the power of laws had acted it, it felt as if its body had become as heavy as a mountain, and it was horrified to find that most of its magic power became inaccessible. As expected, this really must be an immortal formation to be able to affect even me. It's quite impressive that you were able to set up such a formation in a lower realm. Unfortunately for you, the formation is incomplete, and it won't be too difficult for me to break it, Ma Liang said with a cold smile. Immediately thereafter, he opened his mouth to release a small green umbrella, which he pointed a finger at, and the umbrella immediately rose up into the air, then swelled to around half a kilometer in size before slowly opening. A green light barrier then descended from the giant green umbrella, encompassing the entire river of blood beneath it. The impact of the power of laws in the area was instantly severely diminished, and Yang Deer immediately recovered its mobility, as well as access to most of its magic power. As for Ma Liang, he seemed to have become entirely unaffected as he stomped a foot down onto the blood dragon beneath him. A thunderous chorus of dragons' roars rang out, and the 8 blood dragons within the river of blood flew out in unison, before pouncing directly toward Ming Zun and the others. All of them had thick bolts of silver lightning surging over their bodies, and they were giving off formidable Grand Ascension stage auras. We have to act now. He has to withstand the power of formation while unleashing that river of blood to oppose us, and he definitely won't be able to keep this up for long. I'll also summon the 4 true spirits to assist us, Ming Zun yelled as he made a grabbing motion to summon a reddish-purple badge, which he immediately tossed forward. A burst of loud rumbling rang out as the badge transformed into a huge, reddish-purple rune. All of a sudden, spatial fluctuations erupted at 4 locations around the river of blood, and 4 black platforms emerged, atop each of which was a fearsome-looking black beast. The 4 beasts were identical in appearance. All of them were over 100 feet in length with lion bodies and dragon heads. As soon as the platforms appeared, the 4 beasts opened their eyes and stood up in unison before letting loose ferocious roars. You had 4 mythical black beasts up your sleeve. Haha, you sure are good at keeping secrets, Brother Ming. With their assistance, our victory is all but guaranteed, Yin Gangzi said in an elated manner, and the others were also ecstatic to see these 4 beasts. Mythical black beasts were top-tier true spirits that ranked near the likes of heavenly dragons and true phoenixes. They weren't inferior even to the killings of all elements. As such, the sudden appearance of 4 of these beasts naturally instilled everyone with immense confidence. The mythical black beasts sprang up into the air before pouncing toward the river of blood as gusts of black wind, and they were immediately followed by the Grand Ascension stage beings, who unleashed various abilities and treasures to attack the 8 blood dragons down below. Lights of all different colors flashed in the sky, clashing with the river of blood to create a string of devastating explosions. As soon as the mythical black beasts drew close to the river of blood, a cold smile appeared on Ma Liang's face as he made a hand seal, and gusts of yin winds surged out of the river of blood, following which 4 massive crimson giants were manifested. The 4 giants were over 1,000 feet tall and completely bald, wearing suits of armor that were of the same color as their bodies. They raised their fists before launching them toward the mythical black beasts, and even before their fists had even struck their targets, a nauseating odor of blood and gore was already sweeping through the air. The 4 mythical black beasts were able to evade the attacks before instantly appearing behind the crimson giants, then gently swept their front limbs through the air to release long black blade projections, and the 4 giants were immediately decapitated. As for the mythical black beasts, they continued onward without pause, preparing to plunge straight into the river of blood. Right at this moment, Ma Liang uttered the word restrict, and the 4 mythical black beasts felt as if explosions had rung out in their heads, causing them to falter involuntarily. Immediately thereafter, around a dozen crimson tentacles swept toward them from behind before striking them like lightning. Most of the black chi around the 4 beasts was scattered, and they were sent flying for hundreds of feet amid cries of surprise, while scorching crimson flames were ignited on their bodies. In the next instant, a string of furious roars rang out, and 8 tornadoes erupted into the heavens, sweeping all of the crimson flames away to reveal the black beasts again, which had swelled to several times their original size. Not far behind the massive beasts, the 4 crimson giants had regenerated their lost heads, and they were appraising the 4 huge black beasts with expressionless eyes, while violently flailing crimson tentacles had emerged from their backs. Chapter 24:20, Commencement of the Battle. The 4 beasts exchanged a glance before opening their mouths in unison, releasing countless black wind blades that swept toward the crimson giants like a torrential storm. In contrast with normal wind blades, these ones seemed to be phasing in and out of existence as they surged through the air, and upon striking the crimson giants, large chunks of their bodies would instantly vanish amid flashes of black light. The four beasts themselves also sprang forward behind the wind blades, then swept their front limbs through the air to unleash lethal black blade projections. However, the Crimson Giants were completely fearless as they reached out with their massive hands, releasing a burst of fierce blood chi. At the same time, the tentacles on their backs also transformed into a blood barrier before them. Countless wounds were instantly inflicted upon the giants, indicating that they were clearly no match for the mythical black beasts, but with their immortal bodies, they were able to instantly regenerate regardless of how grievous their injuries were. Even though the mythical black beasts held a clear upper hand, they were rather fearful of the giants' crimson tentacles, and thus, an impasse ensued. "Master, I'll go and face those mythical black beasts. They're quite troublesome to deal with, but I just so happen to know some of their weaknesses," Yang Deer said in a respectful manner. "There's no need for that. Those four blood spirits were only recently refined, so it wouldn't hurt for them to face powerful opponents. I have another task for you," Ma Liang replied. "What is it, Master?" Yang Deer asked. "If I'm not mistaken, this formation should have a pair of formation cores. Go and destroy one of them for me. As soon as the formation cores are destroyed, I'll no longer have to use most of my magic power to resist the formation's restrictions, and I'll be able to take care of all of these opponents with ease," Ma Liang said. "As you wish, Master. May I ask how you plan to deal with the other formation core?" Yang Deer asked in a hesitant manner. "HMPH, just do what I tell you to do. There's no need for you to worry about the other formation core," Ma Liang harumphed coldly as his expression darkened slightly. A chill ran down Yang Deer's spine, and it hurriedly said, "Forgive me for asking unnecessary questions, Master. I'll set off to destroy a formation core right away." "Hold on, I have some things to give you." Ma Liang raised a hand as he spoke, and a ball of azure light emerged from the giant umbrella above the river of blood, forming another miniature umbrella that was several inches in size. He then pointed a finger at his own glabella, upon which a translucent bead emerged. "Take these with you. This sensory bead contains the location of the formation core I just detected. Take it with you, and I'll be able to monitor your situation from here as well. As for this Azure Chaos Umbrella clone, it can nullify the restrictive effect that the formation has on you, but there's a time limit, so make sure to act quickly," Ma Liang instructed as he tossed the two items toward Yang Deer. "Rest assured, Master, I won't disappoint you," Yang Deer promised as it accepted the two items. It then tossed the small umbrella forward, and the umbrella transformed into an azure light barrier that enshrouded its entire body. After that, it inspected the location recorded within the bead, then transformed into its deer-bear hybrid form before rushing out of the river of blood toward a certain direction. Following Yang Deer's departure, Ma Liang released a crimson jade box out of his sleeve before pointing a finger at it. The lid of the box was removed, revealing a tiny crimson figure with several golden talismans plastered to its surface. The miniature figure was only around half a foot tall with long crimson hair and a ghostly mask on its face. Its eyes were tightly shut, and there were crimson spirit patterns all over its body, all of which were emanating faint red light. A serious look appeared on Ma Liang's face at the sight of the miniature figure, and he made a hand seal before releasing a streak of silver light toward it. The silver light vanished into the miniature figure's body in a flash, following which the golden talismans were stripped away, and the eyelids on the ghostly mask slowly peeled back to reveal a pair of wooden and emotionless eyes. Ma Liang injected his magic power into his own glabella, and another sensory bead appeared before flying into the miniature figure's body. "Go and destroy the other formation core, and kill anyone who dares to oppose you," Ma Liang instructed. A burst of faint red light flashed through the miniature figure's eyes, and it rose up into the air before flying away as a streak of crimson light, seemingly completely unaffected by the power of laws within the formation. Mingzun's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, and after a brief moment of contemplation, he turned to the six-winged frost centipede and said, "It looks like that true immortal has already discovered the locations of the formation cores. Even though the formation cores are being guarded by fellow Taoist Han and the others, as a safety precaution, I would like you to stall this true immortal's minions as much as possible." "Do you think I'd be capable of stalling them in my current state?" the six-winged frost centipede asked with a roll of his eyes. "Rest assured, I'm not asking you to face them head-on. I have a formation plate here that was refined from an incomplete profound heavenly treasure, and you'll be able to trap the enemy for some time using the formation plate. If they somehow manage to break out of the treasure, then you can simply flee the scene, Mingzun replied. Only after some contemplation did the six-winged frost centipede give a slightly reluctant nod in response. In that case, I can agree to do this. A faint smile appeared on Mingzun's face, and he flipped a hand over to summon a white formation plate, which he tossed through the air. The six-winged frost centipede drew the formation plate into his own grasp, and his expression eased slightly after a brief inspection of the treasure. Fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix, please go and assist him as well, Mingzun said to the Ice Phoenix. Of course, all of our lives on the line, so it's only right that I do my part, the Ice Phoenix willingly agreed. A pleased look appeared on Mingzun's face upon hearing this, and he made a grabbing motion to summon a small black flag, which he pointed at the six-winged frost centipede and the Ice Phoenix. A burst of spatial fluctuations emerged beneath them, and a dazzling light formation appeared before instantly teleporting them away. Right at this moment, Xianxia suddenly transmitted his voice toward Mingzun. Mingzun, do you need me to go to the other formation core? I don't think I'll have to do anything here anytime soon. Can you take on that red thing? If you perish to it, our entire plan will fail, Mingzun replied in a hesitant manner. Rest assured, that thing's aura is rather strange, but at the very most, it's just a manifestation of some type of spirit beast. My cultivation arts will directly suppress it, so I'll be able to kill it and return here with time to spare. Besides, who else can go in my stead? You have to stay here to monitor the situation using the power of the formation, Xianxia communicated in an unhurried manner. All right, in that case, go on ahead. I'll teleport you there directly, but don't make any unnecessary delays. Kill that thing as quickly as you can, then get back here right away, Mingzun agreed after a brief pause. Don't you have confidence in my abilities? I'll be back before you know it, Xianxia replied in a confident manner. Immediately thereafter, an ordinary-looking middle-aged man in a set of gray robes appeared in front of Mingzun amid a burst of spatial fluctuations. Mingzun raised his small black flag before pointing it at Xianxia, and another five-colored light formation appeared, instantly teleporting Xianxia away. In the river of blood down below, Ma Liang had golden light flashing within his eyes, and he was able to see what Mingzun was doing. However, he didn't do anything aside from look on with a cold smile as a series of fierce battles raged on around him. Mingzun was naturally quite happy to see this as well, and he also sat still on the azure moon without making any additional moves. Han Li was still seated on the altar, meditating calmly with his eyes closed. All of a sudden, his expression changed slightly as he opened his eyes before casting a surprised gaze toward a certain direction. Almost at the exact same moment, a burst of energy fluctuations surged forth from the distance amid a rumbling boom, but due to how far away it was unable to pose any threat to the formation core. However, the trade guild guards responsible for protecting the formation immediately tensed up upon sensing this disturbance. Blue light flashed within Han Li's eyes, and he was able to instantly see everything thousands of kilometers away. All of a sudden, a giant white light formation appeared in the distance, and a massive figure that was several hundred feet tall was doing everything in its power to break out of the formation, but to no avail. Above the formation was a man and a woman. The woman wore a set of silver robes and had a cold expression, while the man wore a set of white robes and had golden and silver spirit patterns etched all over his face. A hint of surprise appeared in Han Li's eyes upon seeing this, and he murmured to himself, "Oh, it's her. Then that person accompanying her has to be the six-winged frost centipede." Chapter 24-21, Soul Marks. After a brief moment of contemplation, his lips suddenly tremored a few times. His voice instantly rang out in the ears of the Ice Phoenix, who was situated thousands of kilometers away, and even though it was only a brief voice transmission, an ecstatic look immediately appeared on her face. The six-winged frost centipede immediately sensed what was going on and asked, "What's going on? Who's that communicating with you?" "Fellow Taoist Han is calling me from the formation core just up ahead. Would you like to come with me to see him?" the Ice Phoenix asked with a smile. The six-winged frost centipede's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. "What? He's the one guarding this formation core." "So, are you going to come with me or not?" the Ice Phoenix asked. "If I were to go with you, who would look after this formation plate? If you want to see him, then go on your own," the six-winged frost centipede replied in a cold voice. "Brother Han asked me to relay a message to you. If you want to die, then stay here, but if you want to live, then come with me to see him. As for this true spirit, he'll deal with it if it manages to break out of this formation," the Ice Phoenix said. A cold look appeared on the six-winged frost centipede's face upon hearing this. What does he mean by that? Is that supposed to be a threat? "I've already delivered the message. It's up to you whether you believe it or not," the Ice Phoenix said before flying away as a streak of light. The six-winged frost centipede made no effort to stop her, but he looked on with a hesitant expression, and after a long while he gritted his teeth and said, "Fine, seeing as you've already seen me, I'll go and meet you. In any case, I've progressed to the Grand Ascension stage as well, so there's no need for me to fear you." As soon as his voice trailed off, 3 pairs of transparent wings appeared on his back, and he flew away as a ball of translucent light, leaving the white light formation down below unattended. Without the six-winged frost centipede manning the formation, it immediately dimmed slightly and seemed to have lost around 30% of its power. The giant figure within the formation instantly detected this and began to struggle even more violently, causing the entire formation to tremor and quake. "Brother Han, it's so good to see you here," the Ice Phoenix said in an ecstatic manner as she appeared above the altar. Due to Han Li's instructions, the guards surrounding the altar made no effort to stop her and continued to stand still on the spot. At this point, Han Li had already risen to his feet and he smiled as he said, "Long time no see, fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix. Your cultivation base has improved significantly. As expected, your Ice Phoenix physique is truly remarkable." "Surely you jest, Brother Han. My improvement is nothing compared to yours. Even during my journey, I had heard much about your spectacular feats," the Ice Phoenix said with a smile as she slowly descended from above, landing in front of Han Li. "I would rather not have earned this reputation. Otherwise, no one would seek me out to do something so dangerous. Oh, the six-winged frost centipede is coming over as well. Hold on a moment while I speak with him," Han Li said as he cast his gaze into the distance with blue light flashing within his eyes. The Ice Phoenix had no objection to this, but a wary look appeared on her face as she cautioned, "Be careful, Brother Han. The six-winged frost centipede has become quite powerful after reaching the Grand Ascension stage. In particular, he possesses a certain movement technique that allowed us to even outrun that true immortal for quite some time." An intrigued look appeared on Han Li's face upon hearing this. "Oh, a movement technique that could outrun even a true immortal. I'd like to see that for myself if possible." Right at this moment, a ball of translucent light shot forth from afar, and the guards around the altar immediately began preparing for battle, only to be reassured by Han Li that this was an ally rather than an enemy. Thus, the six-winged frost centipede also appeared above the altar with a dark expression, then said, "If you wanted to see me, why didn't you come to me? Do you really think I would believe your baseless threat? If you didn't believe me, then why did you follow fellow Taoist Ice Phoenix here?" Han Li countered. "HMPH, you said you were willing to take care of that true spirit, so why would I continue to stall it for you? I want to see if you're truly as powerful as all of the rumors proclaim," the six-winged frost centipede harumphed coldly in response. "Is that so? You seem to be very confident that I won't be able to do anything to you. Have you forgotten the blood contract power that I planted in your body?" Han Li asked as his eyes narrowed slightly. I would be wary of that blood contract power had I not reached the Grand Ascension stage yet. But now that our cultivation bases are comparable with one another, there's no way that power will be able to affect me," the six-winged frost centipede said. "You really have become very confident after becoming a Grand Ascension stage being. However, I'm afraid you've misjudged the situation," Han Li said. "How so?" the six-winged frost centipede asked with a completely unconvinced expression. "I can still easily subdue you using the blood contract power." As soon as Han Li's voice trailed off, he immediately made a hand seal, and bright blue light flashed within his eyes, as if his pupils had transformed into a pair of miniature blue suns. At the same time, a burst of enormous spiritual sense surged toward the six-winged frost centipede, who was quite alarmed by this turn of events. He immediately shot back in retreat while preparing to unleash a secret technique in retaliation, but right at this moment, Han Li gave a cold harumph. The sound wasn't very loud, but the six-winged frost centipede felt as if a thunderclap had exploded right within his mind, causing him to falter slightly during his retreat, and this split-second delay was enough for Han Li's spiritual sense to completely inundate him. At the same time, Han Li uttered the word restrict, and the six-winged frost centipede felt as if a certain point in his mind had exploded, instantly sending peculiar energy fluctuations surging throughout his entire body. As a result, his body was completely numbed and immobilized. The six-winged frost centipede didn't even get a chance to say anything before his mouth and tongue were also completely numbed, and he could only look on helplessly with a horrified expression. Only then did Han Li undo his hand seal in an unhurried manner, and at this point, the ice phoenix was already thoroughly stunned. She knew that the six-winged frost centipede was definitely no match for Han Li, but never did she think that Han Li would be able to restrict him without even having to battle him. "How did you do that, Brother Han?" she couldn't help but exclaim. He made a grave error in underestimating the restrictive power of the blood contract, and he thought that it wouldn't be able to affect him now that he's also at the Grand Ascension stage. Generally speaking, this would be correct, but he couldn't be more wrong if he thinks this general rule applies to me. Han Li replied with a faint smile, intentionally refraining from mentioning that this was a result of his spiritual sense being several times more powerful than that of the six-winged frost centipede. The ice phoenix could tell that Han Li was withholding some details, but she knew that it would be unwise to ask further questions. All of a sudden, Han Li asked, "I heard that you two had been pursued by that true immortal this entire time. How did you end up in that situation?" "That's a long story that began back when the six-winged frost centipede abducted me in the primordial world." The ice phoenix delivered a recount to answer Han Li's question. "Thus, the six-winged frost centipede and I were confronted by Ming Zun and the others, and forced to act as lures again. So that true immortal wanted to take you and the six-winged frost centipede as its spirit servants, and it pursued you too because it had been provoked by the six-winged frost centipede. On top of that, he planted some type of mark in your bodies that allows him to track you down regardless of how far away you are. Is that correct?" Han Li confirmed. "That's right. The six-winged frost centipede and I have examined our own bodies on multiple occasions, but were unable to find any marks, so we speculated that the marks had most likely been planted on our souls, completely escaping our detection," the ice phoenix replied with a wry smile. "In that case, perhaps I could help you out," Han Li suddenly said with a smile. An ecstatic look intermingled with a hint of incredulity appeared on the ice phoenix's face upon hearing this. "Really? We had consulted Ming Zun about this earlier, and even he was unable to do anything. The mark had to have been planted in a hurry, so even if this is an immortal technique, it wouldn't be some type of profound secret technique. He was most likely only able to do this by relying on his powerful spiritual sense. As such, I should be able to erase the mark as long as my spiritual sense isn't inferior to his by too much. If you trust me, I can give it a try right now," Han Li replied in a calm manner. "I'd be more than willing to accept your help, Brother Han. Please go ahead," the ice phoenix said without any hesitation. "All right, open up your mind to me and don't reject my spiritual sense," Han Li said as he pointed a finger at the ice phoenix. Chapter 24-22, Slaying Yang Deer 1. The ice phoenix immediately agreed, then closed her eyes and entered a tranquil state, opening her mind up to Han Li. A thin, translucent thread shot out of Han Li's outstretched fingertip, and the translucent thread immediately shot forward, burying its front half into the ice phoenix's glabella. The ice phoenix's expression remained calm, displaying no reaction to this. Meanwhile, blue light flashed within Han Li's eyes yet again, and his finger began to move around slightly, causing the translucent thread to also tremor incessantly. All of a sudden, his brows furrowed slightly as he made a hand seal, and the translucent thread suddenly began to glow with white light that was quickly becoming brighter and brighter, and it was also beginning to tremor more violently. Around 15 minutes later, a slightly pained look had appeared on the ice phoenix, and she seemed to be struggling with something. Right at this moment, she let loose an involuntary cry as her eyes sprang open, and the translucent thread embedded into her glabella instantly shattered. At this point, she was completely drenched in sweat, as if she had just been plunged into a body of water. Her eyes were rather lacking in focus, and she didn't seem to be fully conscious yet. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face upon seeing this, and he swept a sleeve through the air to release a burst of azure light. As soon as the azure light came into contact with the ice phoenix's body, she immediately shuddered, and her eyes quickly regained their focus. "Examine your soul and see if there's any difference from before," Han Li instructed in an unhurried manner. The ice phoenix hurriedly did as she was told, and an ecstatic look quickly appeared on her face. "Thank you for your help, Brother Han. I can't point out anything concrete, but I can sense that a superfluous part of my soul that had previously escaped my detection seems to have been erased. Your powers are truly incredible, Brother Han. It's nothing much. It's just that my spiritual sense is a bit more powerful than that of the average Grand Ascension stage being. In addition, that true immortal spiritual sense has most likely been severely restricted in this realm. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish this either, Han Li replied. Meanwhile, the six-winged frost centipede was still completely immobilized, and his numb face wasn't capable of displaying any expressions, but a hint of astonishment had appeared in his eyes. Han Li turned toward the six-winged frost centipede and said, I have some things that I want you to do for me. If you can do it, I can promise to remove the blood contract and grant you freedom. Otherwise, given the disparity in our spiritual sense, you'll be destined to be completely powerless against me unless you ascend to become an immortal. As soon as Han Li's voice trailed off, he made a hand seal, and a burst of spiritual sense instantly entered the six-winged frost centipede's body. At the same time, a soundproof light barrier enshrouded the two of them, and the six-winged frost centipede felt something stir in his mind, upon which he was able to regain control over his own body, but his expression darkened even further. What do you want me to do for you? He asked in a cold voice. There are some materials I've been unable to track down. I want you to search for them for me in the nearby realms. If you can collect everything within the next 1,000 years, I'll discharge the blood contract. Of course, as a deposit, I can erase the soul mark planted on you by that true immortal right away. On top of that, you must swear a vow to assist the human race on 3 occasions in the case that it encounters any severe tribulations, Han Li said in a calm manner. That's it. The six-winged frost centipede was rather taken aback to hear this. You're already a Grand Ascension stage being, so it would be impossible to expect you to become my spirit beast again. I can kill you with ease using the power of the blood contract, but that doesn't benefit me in any way, Han Li replied in a nonchalant manner. Let me see the list of materials you want. As for assisting your human race, I'll consider it after I complete this task, the six-winged frost centipede said. That's not an issue. However, I'll only discharge the blood contract once you swear that vow, Han Li said as he swept a sleeve through the air to release a white jade slip. The six-winged frost centipede drew the jade slip into his own grasp before pressing it against his own forehead and injecting his spiritual sense into it. There were only around a dozen materials recorded in the jade slip, but even as a Grand Ascension stage being, he couldn't help but draw a sharp breath upon seeing the names of these materials. These materials weren't ones that were rumored to have gone extinct, but all of them were extremely difficult to find and would definitely take a very long time to track down. After a brief calculation, he discovered that it would take roughly the full 1,000 years to track everything down under normal circumstances. HMPH, if I were to agree to this, I wouldn't even have any time to cultivate. I'll have to spend the entire 1,000 years searching for these materials. The six-winged frost centipede harumphed coldly. Does that mean you refuse? Don't forget that if it weren't for all those spirit medicines I fed you to allow you to successfully evolve on several occasions, there's no way you would have attained intelligence and reached your current level, Han Li said in a calm voice, but a menacing aura was beginning to emanate from his body. A chill immediately ran down the six-winged frost centipede's spine, and he said, Who says I refuse? 1,000 years is nothing for spirit beasts like myself. It's well worth the price if I can recover my freedom. Good. In that case, we have a win-win situation. I'll remove the soul mark in your body and you can leave right away. If you delay too much, I can't guarantee that you'll be able to leave this place alive, Han Li said. The six-winged frost centipedes jolted slightly upon hearing this, and he replied, All right, I'll come to see you again once I collect all of the required materials. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face upon hearing this, and he extended a finger to release another spiritual sense thread. Around 15 minutes later, the six-winged frost centipede rose up into the air before flapping his 6 wings, flying away into the distance as a ball of translucent light. Brother Han, were you serious when you said that delaying our departure could result in death? The ice phoenix asked in a hesitant voice as she looked on at the departing 6-winged frost centipede. Of course, everything that remains in this formation will be destroyed alongside it, Han Li said with a mocking smile as glanced at the trade guild guards nearby. Could it be that the trade guild is planning to? You should leave right away and return to the human race, fellow Taoist ice phoenix. I can see that you've benefited greatly during your journey, so stay in the human race for now, and don't go anywhere unless it's necessary before you reach the Grand Ascension stage, Han Li said, cutting the Ice Phoenix off mid-sentence. The Ice Phoenix took a deep breath and replied, I understand. You've clearly prepared countermeasures, but do look after yourself, Brother Han. After that, she made a hand seal and transformed into an Ice Phoenix that was over 100 feet in length, then flapped her wings before flying away toward another direction. Almost at the exact same moment, an earth-shattering boom rang out several thousand kilometers away, and the white light formation exploded into countless specks of white light, following which Yang Deer emerged. It was wearing its suit of yellow armor, and after letting loose a furious roar, it sped directly toward the formation core where Han Li was situated with yellow winds surging all around it. Han Li was able to see what was happening in the distance using his spirit eye ability, and he made a hand seal to withdraw the soundproof light barrier, then instructed, stay here and guard the formation core. I'll be back soon. After that, he rose up into the air as a streak of azure light, flying directly toward Yang Deer. At their incredible speeds, the distance between them was covered in the blink of an eye, and Yang Deer faltered slightly at the sight of the oncoming streak of azure light before a cold look appeared on its face. It abruptly swept a giant hand forward, and a mountainous furry palm emerged out of thin air amid a burst of spatial fluctuations, before swooping down like lightning and catching the streak of azure light. Yang Deer was ecstatic to see this, and it immediately tightened its grip to try and crush the streak of azure light. However, right at this moment, the streak of azure light transformed into an extremely lifelike azure worm, and countless streaks of azure sword chi erupted out of the worm's body in unison. The giant yellow hand was instantly inundated by this storm of sword chi and quickly sliced into countless pieces. The azure worm then vanished amid a flash of spiritual light, and Han Li appeared in its place. Han Li's gaze pierced directly through the yellow winds using his spirit eye ability, and he said, I'm assuming your fellow Taoist Yang Deer. Who are you and why are you standing in my way despite knowing who I am? Do you have a death wish? Yang Deer yelled in a fierce voice. I am Han Li of the human race, and I'm responsible for guarding this formation core. I have no interest in battling anyone, but I'm obligated to keep you here, Han Li replied with a calm smile. Han Li, HMPH, how dare a mere Grand Ascension stage being like you display such insolence in my presence? Yang Deer was enraged to hear this, and it took a deep breath to inhale all of the yellow wind around it, causing its stomach to bulge drastically into a giant sphere. It then opened its mouth to release countless grains of yellow sand that swept toward Han Li in a violent sandstorm. Chapter 24-23, Slaying Yang Deer 2. Han Li's eyes narrowed slightly upon seeing this, and he flipped a hand over to summon a small yellow gourd, which he immediately tossed forward. The gourd tipped itself over, and the translucent runes on its surface flashed, following which it instantly swelled to around the size of a house. Han Li pointed a finger at the giant gourd, and a burst of loud rumbling rang out within it as countless grains of pea-sized translucent sand gushed out of its opening. This was none other than the baleful golden astral sand that Han Li had obtained in the Elder Devil realm. The sand surged through the air before multiplying at a rapid rate, quickly forming a sea of sand. Immediately thereafter, Han Li swept a sleeve through the air, and the sea of translucent sand surged directly toward Yang Deer. The two massive waves of sand clashed violently, and an ear-splitting grating sound rang out as yellow and translucent light intertwined. The yellow sand was constantly shapeshifting into different types of demon beasts as it tore viciously at the opposing sea of sand, but there seemed to be no end to the wave of translucent sand, and regardless of what form the sea of yellow sand adopted, it was able to pulverize every grain of yellow sand it came into contact with. Thus, the sea of yellow sand began to shrink at a rapid rate, and after the span of just a few breaths, it had been reduced to less than half its original size. Yang Deer was rather surprised to see this, but it then immediately gave a cold harumph before making a big forward stride. A burst of violent spatial fluctuations erupted as Yang Deer covered a distance of several thousand feet, appearing right above Han Li. It then laid one hand over the other before thrusting them down violently like a pair of small mountains. Even before they had reached Han Li, two semi-transparent layers of white light appeared over the two palms, enshrouding Han Li within a burst of viscous asphyxiating power. Han Li raised an eyebrow as he made a grabbing motion to summon an azure longsword that was several feet in length, then slashed it through the air. A streak of azure light that was over 100 feet in length erupted into the heavens, then struck the white light with devastating might. A dull thump rang out, and the streak of azure light was repelled. Instead of being alarmed to see this, a faint smile appeared on Han Li's face as one of his arms suddenly thickened significantly, while a layer of purplish-golden scales appeared all over it. He then launched a devastating punch upward, and a cold smile appeared on Yang Deer's face upon seeing this, following which two bursts of enormous power surged into its giant palms. As a result, the white light radiating from its hands became even more dazzling, and the viscous power around Han Li also became more suffocating. It seemed that Yang Deer was planning to crush Han Li into mincemeat in one fell swoop. As soon as Han Li's frail-looking fist came into contact with the white light, a formation comprised of countless silver patterns appeared all over the fist, following which a burst of incredibly fearsome power erupted forth. An earth-shattering boom rang out, and the white light was instantly shattered, while the two mountainous palms were also forced apart. Yang Deer's entire body shuddered violently from the tremendous force of the impact, and it stumbled over 10 steps backward involuntarily before steadying itself again, upon which it cast its gaze toward Han Li with shock and fury in its eyes. It then let loose a low roar before opening its mouth to release a ball of white wind that was around 10 feet in diameter, and the ball of wind reached Han Li in the blink of an eye. The enormous wind pressure being released by the ball of wind was causing the surrounding space to screech violently. However, Han Li was able to swat it away with ease using his purplish-golden arm, and the ball of wind was sent flying into the distance before exploding into a scintillating white sun, releasing such powerful shockwaves that everything within a radius of around half a kilometer was razed to the ground. Yang Deer's expression darkened even further upon seeing this. Right at this moment, Han Li made a hand seal, and bright purplish-golden light radiated from his entire body. Once the purplish-golden light faded, a fiend celestial-like being with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared in Han Li's place. The creature's entire body was covered in purplish-golden scales, and there was a horn on each of its 3 heads. The fearsome being cast a cold gaze toward Yang Deer before striding toward it, and with each step it took, its body would swell drastically in size. After only around a dozen steps, it had expanded to be no lesser in size than Yang Deer. "This is my most powerful form, and this is where the true battle begins. I wonder how many attacks you'll be able to take from me," Han Li said as green light flashed from one of his arms, and a dark green wooden sword appeared. With just a slight slash, the sword sent a burst of law fluctuations surging forth in all directions, and Yang Deer's heart immediately sank as it identified Han Li's true devil physique and profound heavenly treasure. Elsewhere, within a crimson fiery cloud that encompassed an area with a radius of close to 10 kilometers, streaks of silver sword chi were surging through the air amid rumbling thunderclaps. All of a sudden, all of the sword chi converged to form a massive silver sword that was over 10,000 feet in length above the fiery cloud before slashing downward. At the same time, a worm with crimson feelers all over its body flew out of the fiery cloud amid a thunderous roar before blasting balls of lightning out of its mouth toward the giant silver sword. The sword instantly transformed into a silver sword barrier that appeared beneath the worm before slicing the entire fiery cloud in half. Immediately thereafter, the giant sword vanished, and an ordinary-looking gray-robed man appeared in its place. The man was drenched in sweat, and close to half of his body had gone missing. The cross-section of the wound was completely charred black without any blood flowing out of it, and he was looking up at the completely stationary worm up above with a hint of lingering fear in his eyes. "This is a fire whisker beast, a sacred being among fire attribute beasts. It must have been brought into this realm by that true immortal. It's a pity that it's just a puppet without any intelligence. Otherwise, there's no way I would have been able to defeat it unless I used my 9 tribulation spirit vanquishing arts. Even so." The gray-robed man looked down at his own body, which wasn't showing any signs of recovering despite the regenerative secret technique he was using, and a wry smile appeared on his face. Right at this moment, the giant worm up above shuddered before exploding into countless pieces, sending waves of crimson flames sweeping through the area in all directions. The gray-robed man was very alarmed to see this, and he immediately transformed into the massive silver sword again before tearing his way out of the sea of flames. Only after a full 15 minutes had passed did the crimson sea of flames gradually subside, before finally being snuffed out. At this moment, The gray-robed man reappeared at the spot where the worm had once been situated, and his expression darkened significantly as he looked around to find that there was nothing left. After pausing momentarily, he heaved a forlorn sigh before flying away as a streak of light. Huo's Yuzi failed. That's very unexpected, Ma Liang murmured to himself with a surprised expression. HMPH, you're unwilling to undo the sole restriction on my body, so I'm unable to unleash even a tenth of my power. Otherwise, how could someone from this lower realm possibly defeat me? A sharp voice suddenly rang out in response from the nearby space. Immediately thereafter, several egg-sized crimson fireballs appeared around 10 feet in front of Ma Liang, then converged to form a small crimson humanoid figure, who appraised Ma Liang in an expressionless manner. HMPH, there's no way I would undo the restriction in this realm. I wouldn't take such a risk until at least after I return to the true immortal realm. You should be glad that you were able to temporarily regain consciousness. However, I'm going to put your soul to sleep again right away. With your power, just this immortal body of yours will be enough to support me. Ma Liang harumphed coldly, then opened his mouth to release a burst of golden light. As soon as the golden light came into contact with the crimson figure, the cold look in its eyes faded and was replaced by a completely wooden expression. Ma Liang then swept a sleeve through the air to release several golden talismans, all of which adhered themselves to the crimson figure's body. Immediately thereafter, he pulled out a blue jade box, and after the lid was removed, a burst of white chi surged out of the box before drawing the crimson figure into it. After that, Ma Liang stowed the jade box away before looking up into the sky, upon which his brows furrowed slightly. Several battles were still raging around him, and at this point, the 8 five-clawed blood dragons and 4 blood giants had been completely forced onto the back foot. Furthermore, they had been forced to retreat back to the river of blood by the opposing Grand Ascension stage beings, and they were only just barely able to hold their ground by relying upon the endless supply of energy flowing into their bodies from the river of blood. However, it was clear that they wouldn't be able to last much longer. Ma Liang quickly inspected all of the battles taking place around the river of blood, then turned toward a palm-sized light screen right beside him. A giant devilish creature with 3 heads and 6 arms was depicted on the screen, holding a huge dark green sword in one hand and half of a massive beast carcass in the other. That's a profound heavenly treasure being wielded by someone with a true devil physique. I didn't think that the guardians of the formation cores would be so troublesome to deal with. It looks like I have no choice but to undo the seal on myself again. Seeing as I've already found my target, there's no need for me to hold back any longer, Ma Liang murmured to himself before flipping a hand over to summon a shimmering golden talisman. Chapter 24:24, True Immortal Body 1. There were countless tiny golden runes flashing on the surface of the golden talisman, which was squirming and writhing incessantly as if it were a living creature. Ma Liang hesitated for a long while with tightly furrowed brows, before gently waving the golden talisman with a decisive look on his face. The golden talisman flashed before flying up as a long streak of golden light, before revolving around Ma Liang. At the same time, Ma Liang made a rapid string of hand seals while chanting an incantation. Black and white chi flashed from his body in unison, and he began to release an extremely fearsome aura that was only becoming more and more formidable. In the blink of an eye, the aura had become so powerful that even the surrounding space was trembling violently. It was as if an aura of this caliber shouldn't appear in the spirit realm. Outside the river of blood, Yin Gangzi had just destroyed the blood worm that he was facing once again using hundreds of silver spear-like treasures, and a triumphant look appeared on his face. However, in the next instant, his expression changed drastically as he hurriedly cast his gaze toward the river of blood. The other Grand Ascension stage beings had also sensed the fearsome aura within the river of blood, and their attacks faltered as they also turned their attention toward the river of blood with alarmed expressions. As for Ming Zun, who was overseeing the entire battlefield, he wasn't too surprised or alarmed to sense this aura. On the contrary, his eyes narrowed slightly as an expectant look appeared on his face. All of a sudden, a light formation appeared nearby, following which Xuan Jiuling appeared with an unnaturally pale complexion. Ming Zun turned toward Xuan Jiuling to discover that close to half of his body was missing, and a surprised look appeared on his face as he asked, "What happened? It looks like the battle didn't go according to plan for you. Did you manage to kill that thing?" That thing was a legendary sacred being among fire attribute beasts. Thankfully, it was only an insentient puppet, so I was able to make it back alive. Rest assured, it's already been killed and the formation core is fine, so your plan won't be affected, Xianxia replied. I see, as expected of a true immortal to have such a powerful spirit beast by his side. Wait, you didn't use your 9 tribulation spirit vanquishing arts, did you? Mingzun hurriedly asked in a concerned manner. Of course not. That's our only chance to kill that true immortal. If I had used it, I wouldn't have ended up in such a sorry state, Xianxia replied with a wry smile. That's good to hear. That true immortal seems to have begun undoing his seal, so you'll have to strike soon. Take this origin water pill right away. It should be somewhat effective for healing your injuries, Mingzun said as he swept a sleeve through the air to release a blue pill. Thanks, this origin water pill will indeed be beneficial for my recovery, Xianxia said as he caught the pill before swallowing it at once. After that, he sat down on the spot with his legs crossed and began to meditate. In the next instant, a layer of faint blue light appeared over his wound, slowly cleansing away the charred flesh before countless crimson threads appeared before rapidly intertwining to form new flesh. Mingzun was quite pleased to see this, and he turned his gaze back toward the river of blood in the distance. All of a sudden, the entire river of blood began to surge violently, following which one giant wave after another was swept up. Under the influence of the river of blood, the 8 blood dragons and 4 blood giants also became a lot more powerful, thereby allowing them to hold their own against the 4 mythical black beasts and the opposing Grand Ascension stage beings. At this point, the fearsome aura within the river of blood had reached an extremely alarming level. A loud thunderclap rang out up above, and a rainbow cloud appeared, completely disregarding the restrictions of the bipolar destruction formation as it expanded rapidly, encompassing the entirety of Baleful Cry Point in the blink of an eye. The rainbow cloud then began to revolve, and arcs of purplish-golden lightning flashed within it amid rumbling thunderclaps. Within the river of blood, Ma Liang's eyes were already shut, and countless purplish-golden runes suddenly appeared around him, before transforming into purplish-golden chains that swept toward his body. The golden talisman that was flying around Ma Liang abruptly exploded, sending countless threads of golden light erupting forth in all directions, forming a net that encompassed all of the nearby purplish-golden chains. At the same time, the top of Ma Liang's head opened up to release a miniature golden figure, which waved a hand toward the purplish-golden chains in an expressionless manner. The chains immediately transformed into streaks of golden light that surged toward Ma Liang's head before vanishing in a flash, and the miniature golden figure also returned to Ma Liang's head. After that, the fearsome aura being released from Ma Liang's body suddenly vanished, and he slowly opened his eyes as a cold smile appeared on his face. Another burst of rumbling rang out in the sky, and the rainbow cloud and purplish-golden lightning instantly disappeared. Within the span of just a few breaths, everything had returned to normal, as if nothing more than an illusion had been displayed to everyone. Yin Gangzi and the others were unable to see Ma Liang's transformation, as he was situated in the river of blood. But the disappearance of that fearsome aura came as a huge relief to everyone, and they immediately resumed their attacks. Right at this moment, Ma Liang raised a hand and pointed a finger forward, immediately following which the 8 blood dragons and 4 blood giants roared in unison, before countless white cracks appeared all over their bodies. All of a sudden, the 12 creatures exploded into black blood that rained down from above, encompassing this entire space. Yin Gangzi and the others were naturally very alarmed by this, and immediately took evasive measures. Meanwhile, the 4 mythical black beasts vanished on the spot as plumes of black mist. However, the blood storm encompassed a very large area, and it had struck without any warning, so the black-armored man and the woman in the palatial dress were unable to evade quickly enough and were caught within the storm. Their hearts immediately sank upon seeing this, and the silver plate-like treasures hovering around the black-armored man instantly transformed into several layers of silver barriers around him at his behest. At the same time, his body blurred, transformed into a murky gray shadow. Meanwhile, the woman in the palatial dress made a hand seal, and the decorative beads in her hair shot forth as dozens of protective treasures, forming a series of protective restrictions above her. At the same time, azure runes surfaced on her palatial dress amid flashes of spiritual light, forming additional protective formations around her. In the face of this blood storm, both of them had adopted their most effective defensive measures. In the next instant, Close to 100 drops of blood rain fell upon the two of them. As soon as this blood rain came into contact with the protective light barriers formed by the opposing defensive treasures, they were able to instantly pierce through before reaching the pair of Grand Ascension stage beings. Two agonized cries immediately rang out, and both of them flew out of the blood storm as streaks of light. However, once they stumbled out into the open, everyone else immediately drew a sharp breath upon catching sight of them. Half of the black-armored man's face had disappeared, revealing an eerie skull that was glowing with faint gray light, presenting a very unsettling sight to behold. As for the woman in the palatial dress, her face remained unscathed, but one of her arms had entirely disappeared. "What kind of attack is this blood rain? How is it this fearsome?" Mistress Wu Ling exclaimed. Everyone else was also quite alarmed to see this. Mingzun emerged above everyone amid a burst of spatial fluctuations, then said in a grim manner, "This seems to be origin blood power that only those who cultivate blood Dao arts to the extreme can attain, and it's said that just a drop of this blood can pierce through entire mountains and oceans. Looking at it now, those legends certainly weren't exaggerating. Origin blood power. This blood is nowhere near that level. This is merely some spirit blood that I've collected and refined, and it's far from becoming true origin blood power." A cold voice rang out from within the river of blood, following which the river parted to reveal Ma Liang with a cold smile on his face. All of the Grand Ascension stage beings immediately cast their eyes toward Ma Liang, and Ming Zun's pupils contracted slightly, but his expression remained calm as he asked, "Did you really descend from the true immortal realm?" "That's right. I had already attained a true immortal body countless years ago, and if it weren't for the task I've been assigned, there's no way I would visit an insignificant realm like this one," Ma Liang replied. Ming Zun's mind was racing, but his expression remained unchanged as he asked, "Would you be able to disclose what this task is, fellow Taoist?" "There's no need for that. I'm already on the cusp of completing the task. All I need to do now is to kill all of you and clear the way for myself. Now then, let me send you all on your way," Ma Liang said in a cold voice, and before any of the Grand Ascension stage beings could reply, he suddenly made a strange-looking hand seal. Chapter 24-25, True Immortal Body 2. Golden and blue runes immediately surged out of his body in a frenzy, following which bright golden light erupted forth before a layer of blue flames appeared, from within which specks of golden light then emerged. Thus, the golden light and blue flames transitioned between one another over and over again, instantly forming countless layers over Ma Liang's body. The transitions were taking place so quickly that even all of the Grand Ascension stage beings were struggling to keep up with their eyes. Wary looks immediately appeared on everyone's faces, and a cold look also flashed through Ming Zun's eyes. Right at this moment, the light around Ma Liang's body settled on a shimmering golden color, and he took a step forward, upon which his body swelled to several times its original size, transforming into a golden giant that was over 10,000 feet tall. At the same time, he made a hand seal, and golden spirit patterns appeared all over his skin, while countless specks of golden light appeared in the surrounding area. All of a sudden, another burst of power of laws filled the entire sky, and it clashed with the power of laws of the bipolar destruction formation. As a result, the formation was thrown into complete disarray, and not only was most of its power nullified, it was only just barely able to hold itself together. This is a spirit domain. How is he able to unleash a spirit domain in this realm? This is impossible. How can he do this in the face of the restrictive power of this realm? Mistress Wu Ling exclaimed with an incredulous expression. Yin Gangzi and the others had naturally also identified the spirit domain, and fearful looks had appeared on all of their faces. The fact that Ma Liang was able to unleash this ability indicated that he had already returned to the height of his powers and was no longer being restricted by the power of this realm. All of the Grand Ascension stage beings present were quite proud, but they knew in their hearts that there was no way they could contend with an unrestricted true immortal. This is not a true spirit domain. Having said that, you'll be able to witness my spirit domain soon. If you have any trump cards left, then use them now. Otherwise, you won't get any further chances, the golden giant said in a rumbling voice. Immediately thereafter, it pointed a finger up at the sky, and a golden pillar of light erupted from its fingertip before vanishing into the heavens in a flash. In the next instant, the entire space tremored violently, and the specks of golden light exploded to illuminate the entire sky with scintillating golden light. The earth down below also tremored violently as a series of golden rifts opened up, and one golden volcano after another quickly emerged from the rifts. Golden lava came gushing out in a frenzy, and in the blink of an eye, the entire world seemed to have been transformed into a golden sea. Everyone's hearts immediately sank even further upon seeing this. Mingzun's expression also darkened significantly, but he immediately yelled, "There's no need to fear, fellow Taoists. I don't know how he's able to unleash this spirit domain, but there's no way he can maintain it for too long. Otherwise, he would have unleashed it right away rather than wasting all this time." Everyone else felt this to be quite a reasonable analysis, but they were still quite hesitant as they exchanged glances with one another. Meanwhile, the golden giant stood still on the spot with his eyes shut, seemingly drawing upon its magic power. At the same time, the golden domain was expanding in all directions at a rate that was discernible even to the naked eye, forcing everyone to rush back and retreat in fear of being swept up in the spirit domain. Yin Gangzi steadied himself before transmitting his voice toward Mingzun. "With his current power, we could easily perish at any moment if we were to engage him in battle. Isn't it about time you brought out some other trump cards, Brother Ming? Don't tell me that this bipolar annihilation formation is the only trump card you prepared. Rest assured, fellow Taoist Yin, I won't just stand by idly and watch while he does as he pleases. I've prepared 2 countermeasures against spirit domains. I wouldn't ask you to give your lives for nothing," Mingzun replied. As soon as his voice trailed off, he took a deep breath before making a hand seal, and a total of 81 black crystal balls flew out of his sleeves before revolving through the air and blooming like a cluster of giant black flowers. These black flowers then formed a massive black light formation that expanded in a frenzy to encompass all of the Grand Ascension stage beings, and it kept the golden light radiating from the spirit domain at bay, preventing it from expanding any further. At the same time, black runes surged incessantly within the black light formation, alongside bursts of Buddhist chants that struck the listener with a sense of indescribable comfort and entrancement. The woman in the palatial dress was both stunned and ecstatic to see this. "This is the Buddhist river paradise domain. Isn't this a paramount Buddhist protective treasure? How did it end up in your hands?" "He, our trade guild obtained this treasure by chance. It can't compare with that true immortal spirit domain, but it'll be enough to protect all of us for now. If this isn't enough, I have another measure up my sleeve," Mingzun replied. After a brief moment of contemplation, a determined look appeared on the black-armored man's mangled face, and he said, "In that case, I'll stay and take a risk. It'll be worth making a gamble for the chance to kill this true immortal. I'll stay as well, but if it turns out that we're no match for this opponent, then I'm not going to remain here and throw away my life for nothing," Mistress Wu Ling said in a cold voice. Yin Gangzi and the others remained silent, but it was clear that they were also planning to test out the power of this spirit domain before making their decision. Mingzun was naturally aware of what all of them were thinking, and he transmitted his voice to everyone. "Rest assured, fellow Taoists, if it turns out that we're no match for this true immortal, then I won't force any of you to stay here. However, don't forget about fellow Taoist Xuan Jieling. All we need to do is create a good opportunity for Brother Xuan to strike, and there's a very good chance that he'll be able to kill this true immortal." Everyone's heart stirred slightly upon hearing this. Letter 1D4BB, letter 1D633, letter 1D626, letter 1D626, letter 1D638, letter 212F, letter 1D624, letter 1D45C, letter 1D62E. Xuan Jieling was an extremely renowned powerful being who had slain 9 true spirits, and the fact that he was constantly lurking in the shadows instilled everyone with some confidence. Right at this moment, the golden giant opened its eyes. Its magic power had finally been converted into immortal spiritual power, allowing it to unleash some true immortal secret techniques. Unbeknownst to his opponents, he wasn't intending to attack them with his spirit domain. For an immortal, a spirit domain could be used in battle as something similar to a bonded ability, but its main purpose was to assist one in their cultivation. As such, he wasn't planning to use it to directly attack at all. With that in mind, a cold smile appeared on Ma Liang's face, and he made a grabbing motion toward the river of blood down below. A burst of loud rumbling rang out, and the river of blood converged to form a massive angular seal. The seal had crimson flames burning all around it, and there were countless images of different creatures etched onto its surface. All of these images were extremely lifelike, as if they were living beings, and they presented a very unsettling sight to behold. This was none other than the myriad spirit blood seal, which had finally been successfully refined after countless living beings had been sacrificed. With his immortal spiritual power, Ma Ling was now able to unleash most of the treasure's power, and even if he had to kill an ordinary true immortal, it would be a simple task for him. As such, it was complete overkill to be using this seal on opponents of such a lowly caliber, and he was expending a lot of essential power. But he had no choice if he wanted to end this battle immediately and ensure that none of his opponents escaped. With that in mind, Ma Liang injected most of his immortal spiritual power into the giant seal in a frenzy before hurling it through the air. All of a sudden, the crimson seal vanished amid a rumbling boom, and in the next instant, a cloud of blood mist emerged above the black light formation amid a burst of violent spatial fluctuations. A gargantuan crimson seal then appeared within the mist, and all of the images on its surface were manifested as projection. The massive seal began to slowly descend from above, and the space down below began to tremor and warp violently. The black light formation was also twisted by the seal's power, and the 81 black crystal balls within it exploded one after another. As a result, the black light formation instantly vanished, much to the astonishment of Ming Zun and the others, who were preparing to attack. "Run!" someone yelled, and everyone immediately fled as streaks of light in different directions, but they only made it several hundred feet before an earth-shattering boom rang out up above. A burst of tremendous power suddenly descended upon the space within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, forcing the streaks of light to plummet out of the heavens and revert back to their original forms. Thus, all of the Grand Ascension stage beings were forced to reappear, and all of them wore horrified expressions.